And we are live. What's good, Josh? Your man, DLC. How y'all doing? Welcome to the DLC. I Really Want to Know podcast, y'all. Welcome. I hope all is well out there with you guys. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, y'all. Happy Thursday indeed. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I kind of looking forward to this talk, man. I hope y'all are well out there. I'm kind of looking forward to this episode, man. We're gonna be talking. We're gonna be reacting to Charleston White's interview on the Fresh and Fit podcast. And I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, shout out to Myron the Fresh. This particular interview, like, I didn't know anything about Charleston White. Very little about Charleston White. I mean, I know who he is. I've heard the clips. It was kind of like whatever. I'm not really trying to listen to this cat. But shout out to Myron and Fresh for doing what they did, from bringing him on, man, and having this interview, bro. I'm telling you, it was one for the ages. I got to get out to them. That's for them. And, a lot of people ask, me, being an old dude, being in my 50s, they asked me what it was like back in the day, like growing up, what was the 70s like? What were the 80s like? And Brother Charleston just broke it down on this interview. He broke it all the way down. And man, I'm just impressed. And I want to tell you right now, I don't agree with everything the brother says. You know what I mean? He says some stuff that, is like, I agree with some of the stuff he says, though. You know what I mean? Like his take on society and that sort of thing. I see where he's coming from with a lot of the stuff that he's saying, but I can't get behind a lot of it. But I do respect the man. And I mean, I didn't know anything about him in this show. It's about a 2-hour long interview. We're not going to go that far into it. We'll probably go about halfway into it, because I really wanted to comment on and react to the things that he was talking about growing up and what life was like for him. It's definitely some gems in there. You know what I mean? Absolute gems. So I'm looking forward to this one, y'all. I guess I look forward to all of them. We got Sister Candace in the house. What's good, sis? How you feeling? Welcome. Good for you. I hope that people don't invalidate the truth he was spitting because of his past. I hope that too, man. But I mean, simply because of his past, it doesn't invalidate the truth bombs that he dropped. And again, y'all know how we get down over here, man. It's life requires you to put everything through the old
think tank. Arch, nothing gets past the old think tank. Nothing.
You got to put it through the old think tank, y'all. You have to. Life is far too difficult now, and as far as smoke and mirrors and all that that's going on in today's world, you got to put everything through the think tank, guys. Everything. And then people like Charleston, Brother Charleston here, just puts it in perspective. Just gives you, a little bit of background. Like, this cat right here truly a survivor. And for people who came up in our generation from certain backgrounds, from certain bubbles, you had to survive it. And a lot of us didn't. A lot of us did not survive. So, let's just get into it. This one right here, I'm like, ooh, we definitely got to talk about this one. So, again, shout out to Fresh and Fit. You know what I mean? Those definitely my dudes. And they're talking about doing another party. They got such a great response from their supporters. Everyone is just talking about it. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. It was a very grown-up event. I was truly impressed. That I think yesterday that they announced that they're looking at doing another one. So of course, I hope they do it in the summers. Give it 6-7 months or so. I think that they said they're gonna do another one. I know they got some travels coming up. They're gonna be doing some international traveling and doing some stuff. They're gonna get out there and try to support and brother Tate's Andrew and Tristan Tate, brother Tate and his brother Tristan. They're going to get out there and try to support them. They got a trip coming up. It's going to take them to the Middle East, and they're going to be doing some things, which I think they should do. You know what I mean? Say what you want about Andrew and Tristan Tate, but they ain't doing anything. They haven't been charged with anything. And apparently there's no evidence for what they have allegedly been charged of. So, you know what I mean? Hang in there, fellas. I know that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one sitting in a Romanian jail cell, but hang in there, brothers. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So yeah, so Fresh and Fit got to do all that. They got some other stuff going on in America. They're gonna be doing a little traveling, promoting their brand, doing their thing, and then they hopefully they'll give some time and then they'll get back to Miami and have another party because that party was off the chain. I cannot stress that enough. And if they do another one, y'all better get the tickets as soon as they announce. I'm telling you, it was worth it. It was worth every dime. So let's get into it, man. I've wasted enough of y'all time. We're gonna start with Charleston White. He's just he's a social media figure, black guy out of Texas, and has a very non-traditional view on society. And I say that because he's a black man from the hood. Most black folks tend, especially in the public eye, tend to be liberal, tend to have these views. His views are very, very different. And people are like, well, he's conservative. Yeah, kind of, you know what I mean? But he's not the kind of conservative that y'all thinking. And now I understand why this dude is the way he is. And we're going to see that in this video. And don't worry, I will definitely drop the link on this one. You know what I mean? For anyone who want to jump up and comment or whatever, we're definitely going to drop the link on this one towards the end. So, yeah, man, let's get right to it. I think I'm going to make this even bigger. Yeah, I'm going to make this bigger. I'll make myself a little so we can get a good take of what's going on. So here we go. This is Charleston White on the Fresh and Fit podcast. And let's see. From this first time hack we got, how many we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got about 9 time hacks that I got down here. Some of them are pretty long. Some of them are kind of short. But he puts it all on the table. And his brother was real transparent in what he was doing and how he grew up. So this first time hack talks about his 501(c)(3) that he had, hype. He talks about nonprofits, which it's a cool way to start the show. I didn't know anything about that. So let's check it out.
Here's a phone.
Hype.
Tell us about Hype.
Hype was a nonprofit that I started back in 2012. Officially got my 501(c)(3) status. Up until 2016, I maintained a 501(c)(3) status until I met the executive director of the Annie Casey Foundation, which was a guy by the name of Bart LeBeau at the time. He gave me this book that was called "The Revolution Will Not Be Funded," and it's actually written by the Jewish Council.
What?
And it breaks down the who, what, when, and the why that they actually called it a nonprofit industrial complex, and it breaks down why it was created. And nonprofits was really created to hinder as well as to control social movements. So most people think that they're helping the community by getting a nonprofit organization, but it's just really to actual funnel money. And so in this book, it explains that 85 to 90% of the money that nonprofits gets, whether that's Goodwill, the YMCA, 85 to 90% of the money doesn't help the people. It actually pays salaries. It pays the salaries. It pays for the building. It pays for the lights. It pays for the furniture. It pays for the luncheons. It pays for the car, the gas, the staples, the copy machines, and actually 5% only goes back to the people.
Wow.
So when I read that,
Which it kind of starts off right there, guys. I mean, and here's the thing with that. I know a lot of people who are real active politically. And just recently, some people I know, some of my associates were telling me the same thing applies for these political fundraising events. You would think that all the money raised is going to go to that candidate or go to that, that initiative or go to that, that campaign or to that party. Nah, only a percentage of it goes there. I think it's and I haven't verified this, but they were trying to explain to me, they're like, well, legally only this much money has to go to whatever the target organization was. The rest of that money could be used for other things. And most of the time, the rest of that money is used for other things, to pay for talent to come and speak, to get to secure a hall, to pay for alcohol and food and security and insurance and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm like, wow, that's a hustle, man. That's a hustle. And you know what I mean? And Sister Ken's like, yeah, ever been to church? Yeah, he goes on to talk about that too. And yeah, Yeah, and it's like that in the church. So people, it's one of those things like we think we know, but we don't know, and everything's written down. So if you really want to know, you got to get in there and do the research. But let's continue.
Let my nonprofit go, and I just help people from a youth outreach standpoint,
Right.
without begging. So I met a Jewish attorney. I won't say her name. She was from Baltimore, and I met her in Washington D.C. And she explained to me why most Black people can't generate funding or sponsorships to help in the community because you're begging. Most people with nonprofits are beggars. They don't know how to generate anything to sustain the organization. They don't know how to manufacture, produce, sell, create, or make anything to help the organization make money. So they become completely reliant on somebody giving them something.
Right.
So most people, when they get a grant, a government grant probably lasts 3 to 5 years. If they take the grant, then what? How are you going to consider? So once I realized that, I came up with more innovative ways to get money out of the community. So that's how I really end up fucking with gangbangers and drug dealers. I somewhat would extort them. I would threaten to call the police on them.
Hey, Rat Williams, bro. Rat Williams.
Yeah. So I would threaten to extort drug dealers. Now here I am. Here it is. I'm over in the community having school supply giveaways, and most of these kids are the drug dealers and gangbangers, nieces and nephews and little cousins and some of their children. So if I'm helping them and you selling drugs in the community, nigga, why wouldn't you give me something?
Right.
So
Makes sense.
But,
Legal extortion. I've never heard this before.
nah, them
For good cause.
them niggas started helping me for real. So that's how I initially came to the internet as being a snitch, because I was threatening to tell on gang members if they didn't give me money. Why would you want me to go beg from white people?
Yeah. But you know what?
Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. And when I watched this, I watched most of this live, and then I think I had to do a live or something. I had to go do something else, so I didn't get to watch the entirety of it. But I did watch this part live, and I was laughing. But I got to thinking about it, and he's absolutely right. When you're talking about the Black community, you're talking about the hood. I'm not talking about the affluent Black community. I'm talking about in the hood. There's not a lot of money, not a lot of resources. The people with the money, they see it as wasting money on these charities and stuff like this. And like these 501(c)(3)s, there was a time, I want to say back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where this was a hustle. People were getting the 501(c)(3)s and going out securing grants because they knew that they could keep the majority of the money. They could pay themselves as the chairman or the CEO or whatever title they came up with. So let's say they got a grant for $500,000. They could pay themselves $100,000, $150,000 a year with that grant or more, right? And they can pay the officers who sit on the board, and the board members. Everybody's getting paid. So that $500,000, which is supposed to be going to help out the community, they might only get $30,000, $50,000 of that after expenses and this and that. And they're doing events and stuff like that. Same thing with the money that come from the events. Well, you still got to pay us, or we still got to pay for this and that. So he's completely right. So who else has the money? The hustlers got the money. The drug dealers got the money. They don't really care what they do with their bread, but they're not just going to give it to you. You know what I mean? It was so funny. They'll give their money to, strippers. They'll give their money to store owners, but they're not going to give the money so you can go out and get school supplies and clothing and maybe some medical care for the kids in the community, the kids who can't get this stuff because the drug dealers has wrecked the community. you see what I'm saying? So I thought that was, I thought that was creative. I'm like, yo, dude, actually threaten these dudes. Like, well, I'm gonna go to the police if you don't donate some backpacks. I thought that was crazy. But that just shows you how dedicated this brother, Brother Charleston was and is to helping the community and giving back. We got Brother Dust on the house, man. What's good, fam? Good to see you, fam. Thank you for coming through. So, I thought that was crazy, and I'm telling you that the nonprofit thing, because the 501(c)(3), I remember people like doing these hustles out there back in the day, and they were like, well, you can raise all this money, you only have to give up a certain percentage. And I thought it was like 20% or something like that. But no, it's like as low as 5% is all you have to give and the rest of the money could be used for operational expenses and whatever discretionary funds. Just another hustle. I thought that was terrible. I never really got involved in that sort of thing. And then people with money, I mean, you know, just the tax write-offs alone was enough for them to go through it, have an accountant set it up, you know, set up the accounts or whatever, get your board together, get your officers together. You know what I mean? You got the CEO, president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, whatever. And they could just, you know, get huge tax deductions and stuff like that while still putting together the parties that they want to go to on, you know what I mean, like these private islands or whatever. It was crazy. I think some of those laws did change, but it's still, that money isn't going to the people that you think the money is going to. It's crazy how they do that, man. But, hey, that's just the world we live in. So we're going to jump to the next time, Hat, where he talks about his history growing up in Texas. So it's going to be about 5 minutes of stuff, but, man, this stuff was just, for me, I was just blown away by what I was hearing, and it all made sense to me. So let's check this out.
I come from a loving, shit, what was that?
Time travel.
Oh, God.
We're going back in time.
Some funny looking woman to show up. Talk about she was my grandma. No, man, I grew up in what I like to explain the traditional single parent African American home with the loving mama.
Of course.
You know, kind of large for what's happening. A lot of y'all might not be old enough to remember what's happening, but we hardly ever saw Raj mama. It was always him and Dee at home, and Raj hung out at the diner with Rerun and Shirley and Dwayne and
He's absolutely right. I watched that growing up, and I never thought about it till he said something. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Raj and Dee, I never did see they mama. I don't think there might have been 1 or 2 episodes with her in there. Crazy. I'm going to have to go back and check on what's happening, because every day we come home and watch it.
And all of them. I grew up with the working mother who taught us how to pray at night. We had to eat at the table. We couldn't eat in our room. We had to say our grace over the food. We couldn't talk with food in our mouth. We couldn't have our elbows at the tables. So I grew up with a mother who tried to instill good morals and good values into her 2 boys. My granddaddy went to prison. He was a bus driver, but he also was a barber. He had a barber shop on the south side of Fort Worth.
You said your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandfather.
Wait, what about your biological father?
My biological father was in the Navy, so he retired from the Navy. So my grandfather was military. He's the oldest of 17 kids.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother, which is my grandfather's mother, was a slave by the name of Lucille Helton, and she was property of the White Sloan plantation.
Okay.
So that's where I get my last name from, Charleston White.
Okay.
And this part right here, people always talk about, you know, y'all always bringing up slavery, like slavery was so long ago. Charleston White's younger than me. And he's going to talk, like he's talking about what plantation his family came from, right? So he's going to talk about his grandmother who's still alive. Her mother was a slave. So yeah, think about it for Gen Xers. Right, even like my family, my grandmother's mother. Let me get this right. No, my grandmother's grandmother was born a slave. Her mother died a slave. So think about that. Like my grandmother's grandmother. So my grandma's mother. Did I get that right? Because it might not be that far. No, I take that back. So, yeah, my bad. So, yeah, so my grandmother's mother, my great-grandma, who I barely remember. I remember her funeral, but I barely remember her because I was so young. She was born a slave. Her mother died a slave. So when we talk about slavery, it's like, bro, you know, I got, like, my mom remembers, like, you know what I'm saying? My mom remembers her grandma, which was my great-grandma. My mom remembers her. You know what I mean? She came up on a plantation. Think about that. Like, they were owned by other people. So listen to what Charleston has to say. I thought it just got me to thinking. I'm like, yeah. And Sister Candace couldn't even have anything to drink until your food was gone. Yep, that was definitely the case when the grown-ups were around. We got Brother Doug in the house. What's good, fam? Good to see you. But let's continue.
My grandfather's name is Freddie White. He's the firstborn child of Lucille Helton, which was the property of the White Sloan. So he took the slave owners' plantation name.
Okay.
Once freedom came about, the rest of my grandfather, brothers and sisters are Heltons.
Okay.
Lucille Helton.
Yeah.
And so we end up. My family now is the property owners of that plantation.
Oh wow.
nice.
Okay.
In East Texas. So that's our family inheritance. So my grandfather migrated to Fort Worth, Texas, out of Marshall, Texas, by way of the Air Force.
Okay.
He worked at the Powell Lumber Yard. He and my grandmother was two of the first African Americans in Fort Worth, Texas, to own a hotel and restaurant on the west side of Fort Worth, Texas. So they're very prominent. Until the heroin epidemic hit the black community.
Okay.
So my grandmother was affected by heroin.
Okay.
My
This is the 70s or the 80s now?
man, my grandmother right now today is 83, 84 years old.
Oh wow. Okay.
So the heroin hit blacks in the 40s, the early jazz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see how even Myron Gaines was like, wait a minute, because people think about heroin, they think about fentanyl and what's going on right now. Nah, bro, the first time it hit, right, it was back in the day. You know what I mean? So opiates have been around for a long time. And it did decimate the black community and you know, cocaine and then later crack. And then it was a resurgence of heroin. And then that went on for a while. And then it has what's going on now with the fentanyl and the synthetic opioids, the opiates that are out there. They're just destroying the country completely. And it doesn't matter what neighborhood. It's these kids today will sell you poison and they don't care. They'll sell it to it knowing you'll probably not survive, which doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. You're gonna kill off your, you know what I mean? You're gonna kill out the people who actually buy it, your customers. Doesn't make sense. Candace M, there is still a plantation bearing my husband's last name, and his father's side of the family is inviting annually to the family reunions held on the plantation. Wow. Yeah, because my family, the plantation my family's from was in Georgia. Swift Car was the name. And I remember I was in my young teens when we went, you know, to one of the major reunions, and they had pictures and they had as much records as they could find, right? Because this is the post-Roots era. Everybody, you know, all the blacks, especially those affluent enough to track it before DNA, of course, were going out looking for records and trying to piece together their families. Because remember, slaves were sold off, and there was no records on a lot of us. So it was really difficult, you know, prior to the DNA revolution. Like it was really difficult to track your heritage. But our family was lucky enough to track it back to, you know, to that plantation. And there were pictures of our ancestors. I remember looking at pictures of our ancestors, and they're like, wow, you know, like, yeah, we really come from slaves. So yeah, I feel you, Sister Candace. That's I ain't gonna lie to you, that's not something that I want to do, but it is part of my heritage. It's part of my daughter's heritage, and that's something I'm gonna have to do at some point when she's old enough. I'm gonna have to, you know what I mean, like go to the plantation and show her, like, yo, this is where our people came from, which is crazy. And we were unable to track where in Africa our ancestors came from. We could do it now, of course, with DNA, but we couldn't back then. We were unable to track like what tribe we came from and who sold us, you know, whatever, and what, you know what I mean? We couldn't track that far. The records just weren't there. Brother Doug, my great-great-grandfather was born into slavery, which is my grandfather's grandfather. Right. So born into slavery, and he probably died free. If you just got to do the numbers on that, like with the, depending on how long he lived. But it's just my point being, when people bring it up, slavery wasn't that long ago. And I would have conversations with folks who were pretty hardcore, you know, conservative types. And the way I would handle the conversation is I would get them talking about their ancestors. Like I get them talking about their grandma and then their granddad. And then, okay, well, where was your grandma from? Oh, she was from Ireland. Oh, okay, what about your granddad? Like, well, you know, my granddad came from France. Grandma came from Ireland. Da-da-da-da. They would go back and they would track back a couple more generations. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather were slaves on this plantation or that plantation. You know what I mean? And that's when it hits them. That's when it hits them, because people normally don't think about it. They're like, whoa, wait. It's like, yeah, bro, it's not that far removed from me. You know what I mean? So when you're going through the album and you see these pictures of, you know, your ancestors coming over and going through Ellis Island and all that good stuff, which is good stuff, right? We don't have any albums. We have to go find these pictures and records of names. You know what I mean? And the names will be like John, a black man from South Carolina, from the Jones plantation or something like that. That's it. It's not like you got a surname. I mean, it was, bro, there's a lot of there. So when we talk about reparations, I'm always ears up when we talking about reparations, because it's real to me. It won't be as real to my daughter, and it probably won't be a thing at all to her kids. And then her kids, it's definitely a different world by then. But it's a thing, definitely a thing. For me, Doug, yes, he was freed as a boy. Oh, that's cool. That's cool, brother Doug. He was freed. Sister Candace, it's such an interesting conversation, and we must have it. They don't teach this in our schools. They don't teach nothing in our schools, to be honest with you, right? And this is my thing about history. They want to call it, critical race theory and all this other kind of stuff. Critical race theory is a very high-end conversation that you will have if you're trying to be a lawyer. That's where it came from. That's where it shall stay, right? Because it talks about laws and how laws work. But we need to talk about history, period. Let's talk about our history. African-Americans had it bad. Mexicans had it bad. You know what I mean? Texas used to be Mexico. California used to be Mexico. You know what I mean? When you go down to Louisiana, man, that used to belong to the French. So we need to talk about history and just tell the truth. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of people get upset when they're like, I'm descendant of murderers. Like, yeah, well, we all are. If you go back far enough, humans kill. That's what we do. But I just thought it was fascinating, man. So let's get back to the interview.
Yeah.
So
when it first hit.
Yeah, when it first hit.
Okay.
So my grandfather came to Fort Worth in the Air Force. So as I grew up seeing the presence of my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather had a barbershop. That's where we was exposed to like the street elements of the black community, seeing the hustlers hang out in and around the barbershop. My mom had an older brother. He was a pimp. My grandmother got off on drugs. It's kind of divided them as children. I was born in the 70s.
Okay.
So cultural wise, I'm the product of a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, single parent homes, the effects of it hadn't came about because I'm first generation of that. Our mothers.
And when he brought this up, a light bulb went off in my head, and like, he's right. The kids of the 70s, we were the first ones, really, right? They had a name for us. They call us latchkey kids. Latchkey. You know what I mean? Like, we would come home from school, we had a key around our neck, right? We would go to school, right? We would go to school, and then when we walk home from school and then we get home, we take the key out, right? It would be a key, not a little arrow. We take the key out, let ourselves in the house, close the door and lock the door. Latchkey kids. I wasn't allowed to go outside. I did what my mom told me. My mom was at work. She worked the second shift. So she was at work from like 4 o'clock until 12 o'clock. So she would get home around 12:30 in the morning or something like that. And generally speaking, I would be up until about 10 minutes before she came home. I would go jump on my bed and act like I'm asleep. Sister Candace, thank you so much. Love, with the $10 super chat, just supporting the work. I really appreciate that, love. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? So yeah, we were the first generation of, the single mom, the single parents, the single parent home. And if you didn't have money, I mean, you can't pay for child care, and, kids had to take care of themselves. I was watching myself, second grade. I used to come home from school, walk myself home from school, second grade, and wait for an adult to get home. That's when I was living in my grandma's house. So whoever the first adult was that got home, that's how it was. Brother Mike's in the building. What's good, bro? Good to see you with with the 99-cent super sticker, man. I appreciate that, bro, man. I really appreciate the love, man. Thank you so much. And this is, you know, like I said, it's gonna keep us growing, keep us going, making things happen. So thank you so much. But yeah, man, that was the first generation of that. Wow. And when he said that, I was like, wow, he's right. You know what I mean? I grew up the same way. He took some turns that I didn't. Let's continue. Let's listen. You can hear what I'm talking about.
That began having children in the 70s after the civil rights movement. So the 70s was centered around black exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember all the movies, you got Superfly, you got The Mac, you got Penitentiary, you got all of these movies that was centered around black exploitation.
Mm-hmm. Three the Hard Way, y'all.
So
that was a good one. Three the Hard Way
had to battle and
Three the Hard Way was a good one, y'all. Pull that one up on Amazon Prime or something like that. Jim Brown, the guy who played Shaft, I think Richard Roundtree, and I think it was him. And then it was the black kung fu dude, Jim Kelly. They did a movie, man. I remember that, man. It was Three the Hard Way. It was a scene in there where they were riding motorcycles. That's when I wanted to get a motorcycle. I think I was 8 years old when that came out.
Contend with as they was raising their children in Black America during the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Our uncles, our grandfathers, our fathers who wanted to be pimps, players, and Macs.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, during that era, black men, to some degree, was pushing prostitution and drugs off on black women. It was his way out, so to say or speak. So I'm a product of that, homie. So my mom had a lot of male cousins. My mother was the one in the family who fought to do something different. So all the pimps and the players and the Macs straightened up when my mother came around. And so that gave me a level of protection. And
I'm talking real quick. Tell us.
Now, in my family, we had workers. Like, we had some hustlers out there, but like the grown-ups, we had grown-ups that I guess you would consider squares. Like, they went to work. Like, all the grown-ups, even my grown cousins, like my mom, her sisters, my uncles, everyone worked. And early on, we're talking about like doing the mid and late 70s and on. Just about everybody worked at General Motors, or they worked at some factory. Like, my mom worked at this place called U.S. Playing Cars. It was like a factory that made playing cars. Everyone worked at factories. So it wasn't anyone out there like really hustling. Like, I had grown cousins like that would, you know, smoke a little what they call herb, smoke a little weefer, right? But it wasn't like they went out there hustling. They went in the streets doing it because our family was really bringing in money. And my mom was a single mother, of course, and all of her sisters were single, like moms. None of them, they didn't start getting married until the kids were about grown. Like, we were all, you know, definitely teenagers by the first time one of my aunts got married. That generation, like you said, that's the first generation of the single parent. And most, if not all of the women were strong. Like, my mom and all her sisters, all my aunts were strong. But, you know, relationships are relationships. You know, you're going out here and like I said, this is the era of the Mac. These guys were out here talking, running that game. You know what I mean? Getting in women's ear and absolutely lying to them. They'll tell women exactly what they want to hear so they can get what they want to get. So, and we talking about, you know, the Foxy Brown, y'all. Like, they really just want the Foxy Brown. So he's right about that. I never really gave it thought until I watched this interview. You know what I mean? Brother Charleston is really breaking it down. He's got me thinking, I'm like, yo, this is like crazy. But all the dudes wanted to be pimps. And like, it was gangsters and all that was a little bit different. You know, a gangster was closer related to like what they was doing, what the Italians were doing. You know what I mean? You had like the petty criminal, but no one wanted to be the petty criminal. If you were a gangster, you were, you know, you like Bumpy Johnson and them, gangster. Wearing a suit, driving a big car. And then you had pimps. You know, pimps, players, hustlers. That was the 70s and 80s. And all that changed in the 90s. And Brother Charleston is going to talk about it. And let's continue.
What's one thing you learned from your own, I guess, that environment with pimps?
How to manipulate, lie.
Okay.
Really how to play on my mama.
Mm-hmm.
Because most boys learn how
And what he was talking about, like, and he ain't lying. I mean, I learned as a young kid just by watching that dudes would tell women what they wanted to hear. And then I would hear the women complain about it later after the guy got what he want. And that's funny when Fresh asked that question. He's like, well, what did you learn? He's like, I learned how to manipulate women. He's keeping it 100. I didn't quite learn that. I saw it. You know what I mean? But again, I was a kid in the house. I was in the house, staying in the house like I was supposed to, doing as I was told my latchkey years up until about the 6th grade. It was the 6th grade when I started going out. And by that time, things had changed. But let's continue.
Comes in indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
I can never recall seeing an honest man.
Wow.
Growing up, I never seen a man get up and go to work. Everybody was starched jeans, Chuck Taylor tennis shoes, ring, bracelet on. So I never seen the James Evans.
And my experience was the opposite. All I saw was people getting up, going to work. I saw my dad getting up and go to work. You know what I mean? He was a bus driver. He drove that bus for well over 30 years. I saw my stepmom getting up and go to work for Procter & Gamble. She worked corporate. I saw my mom getting up and going to work to U.S. playing cards. And this is all before, the 80s when, downsizing came and they started doing away with the factories. I saw my aunts and my cousins getting up and going to work at the GM factory, at the GE factory, General Electric in Cincinnati. You know what I mean? So the thing was, get through high school, get your diploma, and then go get you a job at a factory. Everyone in my world got up and went to work. Everyone on both sides of my family. You know what I mean? Like even our family members that were kind of close to the streets still had regular jobs. They just did their hustling after work or before work. You know what I mean? My grandma worked as a janitor downtown Cincinnati. My other grandma took care of homes. Like she was like a nanny type, took care of kids and cleaned the homes and stuff. Everyone I knew got up and went to work. Everyone. You know what I mean? Sister Candace, my parents met as bus drivers in LA. Hey, that's what's up. Yeah, my pops met my moms and met my stepmom, my mother, and then my future stepmother and a whole bunch of other ladies, a whole bunch of, others while driving the bus. But the point is, in Brother Charleston's world, all the men he saw was about that street life. Out there, he's out there in Texas. I'm in Ohio. I'm in Southern Ohio, and all the dudes that I saw got up and went to work. Food for thought.
I seen a super flies, and even though my mother tried to shield us from it, she can't shield you from my brothers. She can't shield you from my cousins. And so what ends up happening is, growing up, you watching the movies, and then here come Christmas, here come Thanksgiving, here come a family reunion, here come a family gathering, and all the family gather together. And so what ends up happening, you start seeing how the family treat the uncle that sell drugs.
Yeah.
You see how they treat the uncle that get out the Rolls Royce. You see how they treat the uncle who everybody say may be the pedophile molesting it, but nobody's responding to him. You see how the uncle who known for beating the women, you see how, so as a kid, you're observing how they treat these characters.
Right.
And so I never saw nobody mistreat the street guys. I saw all the guys.
Respect.
You mentioned earlier that you were a juvenile.
Which is crazy because we didn't have those dudes in my immediate family. In my family, the first generation gangsters were us. We were the ones in the streets when we hit 14, 15, 16 years old. We were the ones out there dealing with it. Like when the crack epidemic hit, we was the ones out there. You know what I mean? People out there selling oregano or whatever, fake weed or whatever, hitting licks. That was us in our family. Like, so that's crazy. So he had a generation before that. So yeah, I could see how it'd have been so hard for him to avoid that life.
Now, growing up, did seeing the respect from guys involved in criminal activity motivate you to get involved in that life as well?
I knew my uncle was I used to ride in the car with him. When he called himself pimping and checking paper, Uh,
I ain't know nothing about that pimp life until I read about it, Iceberg Slim and stuff like that. And you know, I didn't know there were pimps in Cincinnati. I didn't know any of them. You know what I mean? There were girls out there on the track in Cincinnati. I just didn't know what they were doing. I just saw them out there walking around, but I didn't know as a youngin' what they were doing. We heard the grown-ups talking about it, but they shielded us from most of that. We wasn't around. Mind you, we weren't allowed to go outside after the streetlights came on. So we didn't see a lot of that as young kids. Right? It sounded like he was right in the mix. And I can't think of a family member that I know when I was growing up that was involved in that. I can't think of one. I'm not saying that I didn't have any. They were just good at hiding it. You know what I mean? And we had people up in Detroit. I know they were getting down. You know what I mean? So he just came up in it. Wow.
I can recall waking up at night in the middle of the night or early mornings prior to going to school, and my uncle physically abusing one of the women. I thought it was all right to slap girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I thought it was all right. You know, I thought the backhand.
Because you saw it. Because you saw your uncle just, you know.
And not just that. It's in the movies.
Yeah.
Right.
And so as a kid, with the young and impressionable mind, there's no way for you to decipher if no one's teaching you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Your mother can say, don't hit girls all day long. But if the men you idolize and the men you admire, if they say slap a bitch, you slap a bitch.
That's what you see.
Yeah. So as I'm growing up, my mother don't have time to counter what I'm seeing. For the most part, she don't know what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
She at work.
Yeah.
She's not really paying. Everything's cultural. So our parents are young at this time too. So my mother had me at 17. So she's in her mid 20s. As I'm watching, I remember Penitentiary 1. I remember Penitentiary 2. I remember Penitentiary 3. There's a character by the name of Too Sweet. Too Sweet was a little frame guy about my size. Handsome fella. The girls liked him. Man, in my mind, I'm going to be Too Sweet. In my mind, when I get to prison, well, because every man I know went to prison. Uncle Wayne done been to prison. Uncle Curtis done been to prison. Jeffrey done been to prison. Not all the men I know in my world done been to prison. When I spent a night over my homeboy Patrick house, his brother been to prison. His cousin's been to prison. Uncle's in prison. His brother. So, man, that, and so the movies, if you right now today, Penitentiary 1, Penitentiary 2, Penitentiary 3, when I'm 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, man, I can recite these words, or I can recite the lines in the movie word for word, just like the kids can sing all the Frozen songs.
You know what's scary? You're talking about movies back.
Did y'all hear that? He could recite the words from the Penitentiary movies. I watched all those. I remember Penitentiary, the first one. When that movie dropped, I was young. I was a little bit older than Brother Charleston there, but I ain't gonna lie, that movie scared me. He's talking about he wanted to go to prison. Oh, that's the last place I want to end up because I'm watching the movie, right? And he's gonna talk about some stuff that will happen in the movie here in a minute. Bro, Penitentiary, I watched the first one. I ain't watched the next two. I ain't want nothing to do with that. Like, nah, bro. Nah, jail was scary. Plus, they had a series on TV back then called Scared Straight, where they would take young kids, young juveniles, they would take them into a prison, and they would put them in there with the prisoners. They would have, like, trustee guards that would come, and these guards would treat these kids the same way they would get treated when they go to prison. They've done, they've brought this back. There've been some more recent Scared Straights. But that show scared me straight. I'm like, man, look, I still did what I did, but I'm like, man, I ain't trying to go to prison, bro. You know what I mean? And, but they was telling these kids, like, this was going to happen to you. This is what they going to do. The guy was like, if I ever see you again, if I see you in this prison, I'm going to come up to you because you think you my friend, and I'm going to take you over there in one of them empty cells over there. I'm going to take your clothes off, bend you over, and you going to be my girlfriend. That's what he tell the kids. These tough kids start crying. Like, they want to get out, like, let us out. Prison guards just looking at them like, nah, we ain't letting y'all out until this is over. And he's like, that's what it is. You ain't getting out of here. You belong to me. Bro, I saw that and I saw that movie Penitentiary, I ain't want nothing to do with jail. No, sir. No, sir. Not me. Not the kid. You know what I mean? So we got Brother Hayok in the house. What's good, fam? Good to see you. Brother Timothy is in Wooten's in the house as well, man. What's good, bro? What's good, man? How you feeling? Yeah, you remember that scared straight, bro? Hey, man, that scared me straight, kind of. I still got out there and did what I did. You know what I mean? The older I got, the more I was like, all right, that's when I understood. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So I would sit around and think about whatever crime I'm about to commit. All right, first of all, is it worth the lick? Secondly, do I think I could get away with it? Thirdly, if I get caught, how much time? Like, how much time is this? All right, I'm cool with that. So I would do my research before I did anything, partly because I'm like, I ain't trying to go in. I ain't trying to do no real time. So, and I didn't know anybody who was locked up. Like when, like for us in my world at church and all that, if Miss Jenny's son gets locked up, that's when you go to church, people whispering, oh, that should go over there. That should go. Yeah, it was her son. They whispering in the church. It's shame attached to that. She raised him wrong. He locked up for whatever whatever crime he did or whatever. And they wouldn't know the details. You know what I mean? He called a case for, I don't know, maybe a gun case. Back then it was like armed robbery was like a big thing. That was the big, you'd catch an armed robbery case, you know what I mean? But there was a lot of burglaries, you know what I mean? It was a lot of theft, right? All the violent crime didn't come until the crack epidemic hit. I mean, there were violent crimes. Like if you hear about a shooting, that was big news. Like if, like I said, like back in the 70s and 80s, a 38 was like that's a big man with a gun. You got a 38, you the big dude, right? You fast forward to the mid 80s, 90s, and people got, assault weapons. You know what I mean? So when the drugs came, that's when the violence came. And again, but before that, it was whispers. You know what I mean? It was just whispers. You know what I mean, brother Timothy? Yeah, it was a big thing. Man, look, that 38 was something. Little 25, little 22, little 380. He was doing something back then. But when the 90s, late 80s rolled around, 90s, man, it was something. It was something special jumping off in the streets. And you had to, it's like, what you want to do? You want to get down? So let's jump ahead a little bit to, let's see. He's going to start talking about the movies. He's going to be talking more about the movies' influence on him and talking about father figures. So let's check this out.
So imagine where we are today. So my mother wasn't at home. Why y'all keep watching this goddamn movie? You watching Penitentiary every day.
Damn.
Because it's fighting in there. We seeing because in our minds we're going to prison. In our minds, we trying to see which one of us go be. It's a guy by the name of Eugene in Penitentiary 1. They got him sitting down peeing the whole time. Lo and behold, we catch one of our friends sitting down peeing. But in hindsight, just think, homie, all he been in the house with is his mom and his 3 sisters. No males. Where did he learn how to stand up and pee at?
Wow.
Yeah.
Until we start laughing at him. But we at school, we thinking he taking a poop every time we see him.
Yeah.
Because don't nobody saying shit at school. We teach.
He's got a good point there. Like one of my dudes from back in the day, man. This was back elementary school days, man. This was David Mitchell, one of my dudes. His cousin was raised by a pack of women. It was like his mom, aunts, female cousins, and all that. And I forget his name, but every summer, his cousin would show up, and little Dave, you know what I mean? Little Dave would be like, man, I hate it when my cousin come in because he'll punk. We would use stronger words that weren't strong back then, but they're considered strong today. You know what I mean? The F word and whatnot. You know what I mean? He this and da-da-da, man. He'd be acting like a little girl. And he, of course, his cousin was there. He had to hang out with us. His cousin was always complaining and, I don't want to do something. Just like a girl, because in hindsight, it's like that's how he was raised. Right? He was raised by a pack of women, so he was raised with female sensibilities. And they even dressed him in girl clothes. It wouldn't be dresses and whatnot, but it'd be girl jeans. Instead of a shirt, he'd have on a blouse. You know what I mean? Because they buttoned up on the other side or whatever. Like the way, the guys button up one way, the girls button up the other. You could tell it were female styles or whatever. And it was like, well, he had to wear hand-me-downs because his older cousins, but they were female, so he had to wear those clothes. Again, mind you, people didn't have big money back then. Single moms, most households were single mom houses. This was the 80s. This was like the early 80s. So his cousin would show up for a couple of days after something. He had to hang with us. And everything was feminine about him. The way he moved, the way he hated getting dirty. Everything was feminine about it. You know, people like, well, maybe he was part of the, the alphabet clan. Nah, it was the way he was raised. He wasn't around any men or boys until he came to be around us for those few days. You know what I mean? We wouldn't even like hit on him or nothing like that because he would go tell. We had to watch what we did around him. But he was raised by women, so he came out like that, hanging out with Lil Dave, man. You know what I mean? Lil Dave was shot and killed probably about 15 years after that. We were grown. I was in the military. I was in Desert Storm, and I got home. No, I had just gotten back from Desert Storm. So it was 90, end of 91, early 92 when I found out about that. Shot and killed, bled to death. Man was shot, was murdered, died out. He bled out trying to drive himself to the hospital. It's a good man. That's a good man. But that's the world we came from. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm always thinking about my people. You know what I mean? Shout out Lil Dave, rest in greatness, bro. Till we see again, till we meet again. But that was the world we came from. But when we was kids, his cousin, you know what I mean, was very effeminate. You know what I mean? Had to wear girls' clothes and stuff like that. I wonder what happened to his cousin. I often wonder. I don't even remember dude's name. You know what I mean? I hope he shook out of it. Hopefully he got some men clothes by the time he was a teenager. You know what I mean? But let's continue with the video.
He's really sitting down peeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bam.
But we kids, homie, so we can't, our minds can't just, from the lack of brain development. We can't decipher this shit.
Right. Did all your friends also lack a father figure in the household as well growing up? Okay. Yeah.
My cousin Steven was the only one who had a daddy, and he lived in Poly. And nigga on Avenue L at that top, nigga, a whole lot of things didn't go on because Joe Campbell was on that street. Because Joe Campbell was on that motherfucking street, nigga. When everybody played for the Golden Knights football, nigga, a whole lot ain't go because nigga Joe Campbell was there. Nigga had that one daddy. That one daddy. My nigga Patrick, my nigga Worm had a daddy, but his daddy was in and out of prison.
Yeah.
So my nigga Aaron McKinney had a daddy. Nigga, he didn't get in no trouble.
Yeah.
And he had a daddy that didn't play.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about.
And what he says about that is real talk. I mean, I was around my father a lot. You know what I mean? Like my mom and dad never lived together. So yeah, I was going from home to home, but it wasn't like a structured kind of thing. It just went the way it went. But I had my uncles and, and my grown cousins and stuff like that. And we were in the hood. So it was, it was one of those things like you would see the strong male influence, and there were strong men, there were fathers in the hood back then. When you're talking about the mid to late 70s into the early 80s, there were enough men in the neighborhoods. There were coaches, you know what I mean? There mailman, your friend's father, you go over the house and, there was enough male influence to keep a lot of us out of trouble. And again, Brother Charleston's looking at nothing but gangsters and hood, thugs. I'm looking at men who went to work, mechanics, business owners. You know what I mean? So it was a different thing. And it's funny that we all wound up being gangster in the end anyway. You know what I mean? Even with the we have very strong male influences, but still we was in the hood. So it was no getting around it. You feel me? You know what I mean? No getting around it at all. Sister Candace, watch what you eat, watch what you teach. Real talk. Brother Hayoka, all the while looking at penitentiary movies and the, let me see, what's the BC and WC? I don't know what that is, bro. Had images of being a black doctor or astronaut. I'm confused, Brother Hayoka. What's the BC and WC? All the while BC looking at penitentiary and is that black children? Yeah, black children looking at penitentiary movies, and the white children had images of being a doctor and astronaut. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah. It's kind of like what's going on with China and TikTok. what the Chinese are programming Americans with in TikTok, showing them via TikTok here in America versus in the rest of the world versus what they're showing their kids in China on the same platform. It's the same thing. And it's like Sister Candace says, indoctrination is real. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But so let's jump to the next time stamp. He's going to talk about how he really got indoctrinated into his gangsterism with this part right here. This part right here I thought was very fascinating. He's talking about, you know, family member, like, yo, this is how it went down. So let's check this out.
You said you've been in jail.
Listen, my mama going to work, and my mama got a baby sister. My Aunt B, Pam. But everybody on the South Side know B. And she got a nigga named Curtis. Her and Uncle Curtis been together since I was born. They fight like a motherfucker, go to jail together, do all kind of shit. So by my mama trying to help my Aunt B struggling with her crack had just came. So my mama.
So now we're in the 80s. We're fast forward to the 80s.
Yeah,
now.
we're in the late 80s.
Okay.
So my mama letting Aunt B come live with us. Aunt B letting Uncle Curtis come stay. So while mama at work, naturally they go do the babysitting for mama. Me and Aunt B and Uncle Curtis, man, they at home playing.
So listen, and this is one of the things about single parenting, right? And I don't care if you're a single dad or single mom. You know what I mean? It's just the court system gives moms custodialship, you know, like 90% of the time. So, you know, a lot of this falls to women. But the thing is this. Someone needs to be home with the kids. In my case, I was home with the TV, and I listened to my mom, and I stayed in the house. Brother Charleston was home with his gangster aunt and her gangster boyfriend, right? This is definitely going to go bad. Right? This is going to go bad. And what's mom going to do? She at home. She's like, well, you know, my baby's okay. My sister's there. She ain't going to let nothing happen to him. And maybe she didn't let anything happen to him, but she's certainly putting him in a situation where something could happen to him. So pay attention to this part, y'all.
Cards taking me down to the store. They stealing like a motherfucker. Boy, they teaching me how to steal. They stealing cartons of cigarettes. And this one, they used to have the cartons of cigarettes on this side of the counter.
And this is in Texas, right?
Yeah, this is in
Fort Worth,
Texas. Yeah, it's in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. Late 80s.
Now, Uncle Curtis, he just coming home from prison. He telling me all the prison stories. All the motherfucking prison stories, the bravado prison story. When I spent a night over my partner in them house, his partners, his big brothers coming home from prison, they telling us all the prison stories. Remember, I done seen penitentiary.
Exactly, yeah.
Now we got, the culture is shifting from Big Daddy Kane, Salt and Pepper, LL Cool J.
Yep.
Is shifting.
Now he's talking about right here. He's talking about where the culture is, right? So Big Daddy Kane, Salt and Pepper, Heavy D was back then. You had Kwame, you had Fresh, you had DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince. You know, the music was very light, even the rap music. You know, you had the Force MDs, you had UTFO. Even there was no gangster, nothing. Even though these people were gangster in real life, right? But the music wasn't gangster. Sugar Hill Gang, you know what I mean? You had the real Roxanne Shante, right? You had all these, you know what I mean? I think he said Salt and Pepper. You you just had all that craziness, Kid and Play. You know what I mean? It was the culture was a little bit different. Yeah, you had Rakim. You had Eric B. and Rakim, but he wasn't talking about nothing too gangster. Just his style just blew everybody's mind, right? So this is the era he's talking about. And he's going to talk about this shift. You know what I mean? Yeah, Brother Timmy was talking about, yeah. KRS-One. You know what I mean? You had that. So you had the Fat Boys, right? It was the Beastie Boys. Like, it was a different era when it came to hip hop. Right, but it was beginning to shift, and that shift, right, was affecting a bunch of young children who were without proper guidance. You know what I mean? Brother Tim Brew bars. Why is it okay for him to say the N-word, but we can't? You can, just this depends on who you say it to, bro. You can say it. If you a white guy, you can say it. You just don't want to say it to me. Like a lot of people, like they get big on, you know, online. They got, you know, these icons up and this and that. You can say it, but just, you know, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, depending on who you say it to. Myron and Fresh, they from a different generation. They down in Miami, they look at it different. You say it to me and my people, yeah, you don't have a situation. You're going to have a situation. Ain't nobody going to say nothing to you either. Ain't going to be loud. We ain't going to get big and all that. We just going to do what we do and walk away. And you'd be like, why? Because it's a cultural thing. And this is a big, I'm glad you said it, because this is a big thing even within our culture. Right? Because the first thing I said to Myron and Fresh when I met him, I talked about that. I was like, yo, man, what's up with the use of the N-word? I didn't say N-word. I was talking to them. Like, what's up with that? And they gave me their answer. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, he's someone you look up to. Nah, I don't look up to Charleston. I understand the Charleston. And that's what that's what this is about. That's what we're looking at. We're just kind of breaking it down so you can get a little look into this mentality. And let's see, Tim is saying, oh, it's okay for me as a white man to say, you can say what you want, bro. But like I said, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So careful who you say it to. Like I said, in real life, like, you know, people like to try to get away with it online and this, that, you know, trolling and all that kind of stuff or whatever it is. Say it around me, you know, something might happen. That's all I'm saying. Say it around anybody from Gen X. Say it around anybody who really came up like that. Say it around people, you know what I mean? Because I've been chased by folks trying to do me harm as a young kid, and that's the word they used. You know what I mean? I've seen pictures of family members who were, you know, strange fruit. And strange fruit is just a term for being lynched. And that's what they were screaming up, you know, to me. Probably the last things, you know, some of my family members heard as they were dying at the end of that rope. So you can say it around the wrong people, bro. And, you know what I mean? It might be lights out. You know, you feel me? So, but these younger generation, these young kids, it's taking on its own form. Like it's part of the hip hop. It's part of the culture. This word is kind of evolving, but there are always going to be people who are going to take it a certain way. And if someone's looking for an excuse to set it off and you say that as a white guy, it's going to get set off. You know what I mean? I would not recommend you use that word. I simply would not recommend you use that word. You know what I'm saying? It's people who will let you have it, bro. You know what I mean? Just based on that word. Like I said, there are a lot of folks out there looking for excuses to get big. There is a lot of people out there who want to let that beast out, right? And then you give them that opportunity. You can't then throw up your hands and be like, oh, what's going on? Or help Mr. Policeman or whatever. Nah. You know what I mean? Nah. It don't work that way, bro. You know what I mean? It just don't. So just understand that could be a battle cry. And from in Cincinnati, a place like Cincinnati, yeah, those white dudes out there who'll use it, stand right there, 10 toes down, like, what's up? And they ain't using it as a term of endearment either. It's like, what's up? They ready to get down. That's what that meant to us in Cincinnati. That meant you were totally committed to the conflict. When you say that, it's on. It's never anything else. We could let everything else go, like this, that. But when you use that word, this is the way I took it when I was growing up. When you use that word, oh, they really want this to happen. So let's go ahead and get to them. You know what I mean? That's what that word was. Like, oh, okay. This is how bad they want this to happen. So that's my take on it, bro. Say what you want. Be careful who you say it to. That's all I got to say. There's a lot of young people out here that'll give you a pass. Me and Jay Swans actually did a show on this, use of the N-word, when we were doing in-studio stuff. I'm trying to find that footage. I might even post it. It was pretty cool. The audio is kind of shaky. That's why I haven't really posted it. I'm going to look at it again. I might post it, but we were talking about use of the N-words and we were telling stories and, you know, we was breaking it down between different cultures. Like, okay, it's bad for white folks to say, but can Asian people say it? Can Latino people say it? You know what I mean? Well, what if you're from Africa for real? Like, what if you're from the Sudan? Like, what if you're from Nigeria? Can they say it? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I try not to say it. I really work on it. If you don't know me, you probably won't hear me say it. And if you have heard me say it, it was because I was with people I was comfortable with and maybe forgot the camera was on. You got people like Brother Charleston and Myron and Fresh. They say it all the time. Can't co-sign on it. But again, they grown up. They do what they want. Just remember, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Brother Tim, if you want to say it as a white man, go right ahead. I just would not recommend it. I just wouldn't. And Brother Timothy, yeah, he's like, yeah, the wrong people say it. You say it around the wrong people, man. It is a wrap. It is a wrap. It could be something as simple as just getting smacked silly, or somebody might pull them things out. You know what I'm saying? And let it go. You don't know who you dealing with. You don't know what they dealing with. You know what I mean? So just, I would be real careful with that word. But back to the interview. I'm trying to see where we are time-wise. Yeah, let's continue. We got a couple more, like a minute or so left. He's talking about his aunt and like basically his indoctrination into that street life.
Shifting to gangsterism now.
Yes. Now the West Coast is starting to slowly slide in.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Dre,
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg, Tupac.
I'm 12, 13 now. When NWA, I get a hold of Ghetto Boys.
J Prince.
Straight Outta Compton came out in '89, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, changed the whole trajectory.
Yep. It went from like fun dance music, you know,
Well,
to
first time we found out about Strawberry, we started tricking with grown women who smoked crack when we were like 13 years old.
Damn.
How we know about Strawberry, nigga? Strawberry is the neighborhood hoe.
Now think about it. He said he was what, 11 years old or something like that? 14 years old, somewhere in there. And he's talking about getting Foxy Brown from grown women. Strawberries. Now again, his generation is a lot of firsts going on, right? The freebase, like crack cocaine. No one ever seen that before. No one. And like it was so easy to cook up. It was cheap, but you had so much of it. I mean, it was making people millionaires overnight, bro. Right. And like a basic hit of crack. When I first saw it in the mid, it was the late 80s when I first was around it. Right. Like 80, 86, 85, 86, 87, when I first saw it. I didn't know what it was. The police didn't know what it was. And you can have like a vial like that big, full, maybe that big around, about that tall. That would be like $20,000 worth of product that you can put in there, like those little bitty rocks. You can put like that much product in there. You know what I mean? Like that. And you talking about kids who had no money, and you could make an investment of nothing really, because most of the dudes, the plug, they would give you a pack. They would front you the product, and you would come back and give them the money, and you would make, which is 100% profit, because you didn't have to, there's no startup fee for you. So if you didn't get caught, you get your little starter pack, you go out there, you know what I'm saying, get you like they call it a working 50. You get you a working 50, you know what I mean, a working 100, go out there and come back after 3 hours, you got $400 in your pocket, and you done paid, you know, the plug his money. $400 for people who would, like your mom didn't even make $400 in a week. You got $400 in 3 hours. Then go ahead and get another one, do the same thing over again. So when crack hit, it was crazy. So you got these people who were strung out, and these women, they were fine. This is before the drug messed them up. They were fine. And they do anything for that product. So pay attention to this part that he's talking about.
So you got to understand, homie, when crack hit, it's just like the girl on Percocets and Molly's that's still fine in the mother. Mm-hmm. And the drugs hadn't took effect on her physical form. She's still fine. So nigga, when these nigga mamas was on crack and they grandma was smoking crack, they were fine in the motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, but nah, these niggas see they pictures of their grandmamas and their mamas who they know was on dope. Mm-hmm. They grandmamas and mama were fine in the motherfucker when they first started smoking crack.
Yeah. It takes time.
Yeah, and
for them to deteriorate.
So nigga, we the first kids to see crack and dope fiends.
Yeah.
So the little boys who wanted to try to sell drugs and crack, well, how do you think the older dope fiends manipulated us with their pussy and head.
Mm.
Yeah, nigga, man, most nigga was selling crack to trick. Nigga wasn't buying track by pussy in it. Let's be honest. Because
Absolutely right. It was Foxy Brown and sneakers, tennis shoes, gym shoes. We call them gym shoes. Foxy Brown and Jordans. Foxy Brown and foot Jordans. They was getting it. Think of that. 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're laying with grown women. Like, the streets was super fast, man. It was like hyper speed fast. It was ridiculous. And all this happened, it's seemingly overnight. It transformed the dope game, transformed the hood. Now, remember, the hardcore drug addicts were doing heroin. Even back then, late 70s, they were doing heroin, smoking weed, smoking hashish, doing mushrooms, doing acid. All that was going on. When crack hit, they all went to that because it was cheap and it was everywhere. And, you know, the heroin thing was always there. There wasn't that big spike in heroin until much later. Like what we're looking until, you know, like now, until doctors got everybody high on opiates. You know what I mean? on oxys and all that, on Vicodins and all that, Percocet. That came much later, and that's what led to the current crisis with, you know, heroin and fentanyl and all that. But back then, a lot of people who were on the heroin were like, well, they were trying to stop, so they went to crack to help them step down or whatever. It was crazy. So yeah, they didn't have money. You know what I mean? It was big recession back there in the 80s. You know, like interest rates, average interest rate was like 12 to 20% on houses back then. You know, money was not cheap. Yeah, the early 80s and 90s Cops. Yeah, bro, that TV show Cops, yeah, you got to see it out. And police officers didn't know what it was. They were playing a game of catch up. By the time they figured out what it was, everybody had everything was locked in. Everything was locked in. It was a crazy time. You're right, brother Mike. It was a crazy time to be alive, man. We grew up in it. We didn't know any better. That was our life. You know, I ain't gonna lie to you. I didn't know that my lifestyle was wrong. The way I grew up was different until the 90s. It was 1998 when I realized that. I was working as an air traffic controller in Van Nuys, California, talking to my fellow employees, my coworkers, and that's when I realized, like, yeah, the way I grew up was wrong. Because I'm listening to their childhood stories, and they would turn to me and ask me about my childhood stories, and all my stories were just hyper violent. I was lying. I was making up stories. I didn't even want to tell them. You know what I mean? Yeah, brother Doug, Reaganomics, absolutely. Reaganomics was a thing. Iran-Contra was a thing. That's when the dope hit the streets. I've talked about this before on some of the previous shows. That's when the dope hit the streets. That's when the guns hit the streets. When Freeway Ricky made it up out of South Central and came, Freeway Ricky was in Cincinnati, bro. Forest Park, he had houses. I knew people that knew him. He was the ultimate plug. That dude was that's when people went from having a couple ounces, maybe a half, to getting 10, 15 kilos. Like, everybody. Dudes had bricks. You know, they called them birds, man. It was birds everywhere, man. It was insane. The money turned around, man. It went from people barely making it to survive to the same dude 8 months later is a millionaire. That was the life. And again, Charleston White, Brother Charleston was coming up amongst a bunch of thugs. I was coming up around people who worked. So my hustle was always go get a job. It didn't feel right to be on the block trying to hustle. It didn't feel right to me. I tried it. It didn't feel right to me. I didn't like it. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I didn't want to sell hard. I didn't want to sell soft. You know, I didn't want to sell powder. I didn't want to sell weed. Tried it. That wasn't for me. Let me go get me a job, man. I worked at Perkins. You know what I mean? I worked at Frisch's. I worked at Ponderosa. I worked in my uncle's garage when I was real young. Like, let me go get a job. You know what I mean? Because that is, ooh. You know what I mean? That was crazy. You know what I mean? So we got Brother Mike, I listen to you, deal. You're a big deal in my life. I appreciate that, bro, man. I mean, like I said, man, if any of my stories can help anybody out there, man, that's a win. That's a win, bro. Like, even if, you know, people could just sit back and just learn how fortunate they are. Like, stop crying. Stop crying, man. Somebody always got it harder than you. There's a lot of people who had it harder than me. You know what I mean? So we in America, bro. We are in America. At the end of the day, man, we are in America. Like, come on, bro. It's not like you in Guatemala somewhere. It's like you ain't in Colombia. You're not in Nigeria. You know what I mean? You're not in Somalia. You right here in America. So no, man, if I could tell y'all any story like this, oh, that was horrible. Like, I mean, I survived. You know what I mean? Look where I ended up. I cannot be mad. Yeah, Brother Doug, the crack era was crazy. Man, it was so crazy. You know what I mean? It was so crazy. T for real, what's good, fam? Tell my boy Lil Chuck said what's up. Will do. You know what I mean? Brother Hayaka, Oliver North got a book deal. Oliver North got a lot, man, for falling on this sword, bro. He got a whole lot. We got Brother Jose in the house. What's good, fam? Freeway Ricky, a boxing promoter now. LOL. Hey, man, I'm happy for him, man. He did, he sat down. He paid his debt to society. He did whatever. But you got to understand, it was the government that put Freeway Ricky on. It was, he got the money from the government. He got the dope from the government. That whole Iran-Contra thing. Maybe I'll do a show on that, man. That whole Iran-Contra thing was crazy. It was crazy. And the U.S. government knew that the drugs were going straight to the hood. They knew it. They knew it. Freeway, man, look, Freeway Ricky was balling out of control. We got Dr. B in the house. What's good, fam? Always a pleasure to see you, man. You know what I mean? The whole squad up in here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Charleston White literally gave the girls game on how to keep a man around. He did his best, man. On that after hours was a really good after hours. He did his best to try to give those young women game. And I ain't gonna lie to you, they were listening. They were listening. I don't know if they took it to heart, but they were absolutely listening. Brother Hayoka, a friend of mine that passed. I think you mean a friend of mine that passed was asked by his mother, what was the worst you ever did in my house? He said 13 keys. Yeah, bro. 13 keys today ain't nothing, bro. Man, look. Today, they'll put that in your car while you sitting in the restaurant talking to the plug. Come out the car, it's already loaded up. They do that like it ain't 13. Bro, it was dudes, man, in the hood getting semi-truckloads of product. Semi-truckloads. And this is well past the 80s. You know what I mean? They was just, it was, bro. It was just crazy. You know what I mean, Mr. Luna, iron sharpens iron. Yeah, steel sharpens steels, bro. You're right about that, man. It you know, if it don't kill you, man, it's, you know what I mean? If it doesn't kill you, bro, it can only make you stronger. For real, for real. Brother Timothy, last night's show was the worst ever. I didn't watch that one. You know, I don't watch too many of the after hours, but the one that they had Brother Charleston on there, that was a good after hours, man. They had a good panel. It just kind of worked out well on that one. But yo, man, like he is not lying. And the thing is, I listened to this, man. I watched this. I'm having to watch this again. It's like the fourth time I'm kind of watching this because I set up for the show. I was this close. I was this close to going that way. You feel me? Like I could have gone that way. I could have. I was right there. I was right there. The people I grew up with, I'm talking about people I was in the sandbox with, bro, was pulling down $300,000-$400,000 a month, bro. And they knew me. All that is, what's up, man? They would come through. What up, Don? Don, get up here, boy. What you need? Huh? Man, you ain't got to give me nothing. Here you go. Is that enough? I could have did that. But again, I didn't like that lifestyle, man. I just didn't like it. And like I said, bro, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. When they changed the laws and you got more time for having crack than you did for having powder cocaine and it was the same thing, nah. Like, nah, no, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. You can have a kilo of powder cocaine and wind up getting, I don't know, 6 years or something. You know what I mean? But you can have the same amount in rock cocaine and wind up getting 60 years. It's the same thing. Like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just going to go ahead and join the army, man. I'm going to jump out of airplanes, bro. I'm good. You know what I mean? So, 2842, 2015, 30. So let's check this out. This part here, he's just, again, talking about that gangsterism. And, like, it was real.
You're involved in the drug trade with your friends. Your market's like exploding now at this point.
Yeah.
And sorry, you were talking about now the gang culture is starting to seep in too.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother did everything she could to try to shield us for it. So I didn't grow up in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
My mother landed a job at General Motors in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went from like rags to riches overnight. When I was in the 3rd grade, I lived around the corner from Bobby Valentine, who was the manager. No. He was the manager of the Texas Rangers for like 20-something years. So we lived in Pantego, home in Worthington Gardens.
Okay.
In like 83, 84, when it was unheard of for black people to live out there.
Yeah. So I gotta know, Charleston.
So even here with Brother Charleston, like his mom had a great career. She was making she's at the factory making good money back in the 80s. She's got him out of the hood. He's living in the suburbs. But he's gonna talk about how he fell down that trap. You know, and you got to hear this part, how he fell down the trap. Let me pull this forward a little bit, because I just thought it was, and I'm just fast forwarding because Fresh asked him a question, and it was about when's the first time he smashed, a Caucasian girl. I'm like, we don't need to hear that. And even mine were like, no, let's get back to the story. So let's get back to it.
So did you end up joining a gang? Or
no, see, I never got exposed to it. My mother moved to the suburbs.
Okay.
To the outskirts of Fort Worth once Fort Worth started going bad. So we lived in Meadowbrook in like 86, 87. There wasn't a lot of black people in Meadowbrook at the time. From Meadowbrook, when my mom started seeing, because we would go to my aunt's house on the south side. And by this time crack was kind of it was visible.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got DARE. The DARE program.
For drugs.
The DARE program showed me who was on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me identify.
DARE was an absolute waste of time. DARE, just say no. DARE, all that was terrible. They still have the DARE program today, I think. Absolute waste of time. I just want to throw that in there.
That my grandmother on drugs, my aunts was on drugs.
Okay.
Prior to that, we didn't know what crack looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what the effects of crack could possibly look like. My mother shielded us from that. So I got to go to my aunt's house. I got to go to my cousin's house on the weekend, and that's where I would pick up the negative attributes of the culture.
Okay.
So when I come back to the suburban area,
yeah,
I can mimic all this negative shit that I picked up over in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
So in hindsight, because I was able to go be exposed to all the negative of things of our culture, and then come back in this shielded little world.
Yeah,
I'm the bad apple, right?
Gotcha. Yeah,
I get
he the bad apple, and he loving it because he's the most popular kid in the burbs. So he's going to the hood, being with his family, and watching the gangsters do their thing, and then he's taking these mannerisms back to the suburbs. And his mom doesn't see it because she's at work. But he has, he's going to get into it, like he has all these things. It's a race to the bottom, right? The worst I can be. Why? Because we all know good guys finish last. You're going to get all the attentions if you thugged out, you this, you that, right? I went through a little bit of that. I saw it. I used to be very well-spoken when I was younger. My father had me in a Lutheran school. I was there until 4th grade, and then I went to the public school system, which I excelled because the private school system was way better. I got all the resources I needed. Of course, Pops had to pay for it. Growing up business, something happened. I wound up in the public school system, and then I wound up being part of the busing program, and I was out in like the best neighborhood. But I didn't want to go to school there. I wanted to go to school in my neighborhood. So I was bad. I acted out. They kicked me out of the program, and I wound up in my neighborhood school. And there, I was ridiculed day one for knowing things, for being educated, for understanding stuff, for speaking properly. And it was a race to the bottom. I had to get rid of all that. You know what I mean? I had to get rid of all of it. You talk about what they call it, code switching. Yeah, I had to switch right to the street thing. You know what I mean? Because you get tired of fighting. You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm getting tired of having to fight these dudes off because, I know what a kilt is. You know what I mean? You don't kilt nothing, bro. That's a dress that they wear over. It's like a man dress. I know what that's a man battle dress. that they wear in Scotland and Ireland. Nah, they did. Oh man, so and so got killed. Oh, bro, that's what I had to do, bro. It was, like I said, it was a race to the bottom, and that's what he's talking about. The difference being, he's in the burbs. He could have done the race to the top, but he chose to race to the bottom. It's crazy.
To be the leader because I get to know the songs that they don't get to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it propelled me to be a leader because I got to be exposed to things that they couldn't be exposed to.
Gotcha.
And so I would go rub it off on them. And so that's how I ended up becoming a leader. My older brother was also starting to become rebellious, going through the adolescent stage,
Of course.
as most teenagers are. When you're going through the adolescent stage, most children mimic their culture and follow their friends. So if the culture is selling drugs, at one point in time, our culture was selling drugs. That's why so many black boys sold drugs. Now the culture is drilling and killing.
Yeah. And scamming.
Scamming. So that's what you pick up. And at the time, gangsterism was just starting to be introduced to black culture.
Yeah.
We was a party people. We had kid and play house party. Niggas was doing a kid and play. MC Hammer. We was dancing and having fun. We hadn't turned gangster yet. So I'm the kid, 11, 12, 13 years old, at home, mom at work. I'm like the kid today who got the PlayStation 5, an iPhone, all the Jordans. He can Uber Eats whenever he want. I'm that kid at home by himself with access to everything. I'm that kid.
Yo, y'all see that at the bottom, Brother Mike over there, Mod and Sister Candace all in. If y'all watch on this replay, if y'all watch the bottom, you'll see a lot of us on there representing. But he's right though. I was that kid too. My mom was working. I had the Atari 5200. I had the 2600 before that. You know, I didn't even use the stuff. I had toys for days, plenty of food. My mom would cook the food. All I had to do was warm it up. You know what I mean? We didn't have microwaves, but we did have like the toaster ovens and stuff like that. And I knew how to use a regular oven. It was electric. It wasn't gas. So everything was there for me. I came home. I locked myself in. I had all my snacks, all my toys, at the TVs, everything. Now, I wasn't doing what he was doing. I didn't have anybody in the house because I followed my mom's orders. Listen to what he was doing. But I get where he's coming from.
Yeah. Dangerous.
Got a check and order pizza. All the other kids can come over after school and I can damn near have them. So I'm that kid with no parental supervision, but my mother is telling me what to do.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to hear that shit.
Yeah. Facts.
Right.
So I'm at home, man, picking up the culture. So when I go to school and my brand new Jordans, my mama just dropped me off in this brand new Cadillac because she work at General Motors. I got all these silk shoes and silk shirts. I got everything every kid at school want, but I'm coming with all the negative bullshit, playing like I'm from the hood.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was visiting.
Yep.
I'm playing like I'm from that. So so at school, I'm showing out because I'm pretending to be what I saw in the hood.
So your peers started to gravitate towards you.
Come on now.
Yeah.
So man, we ended up catching a murder case. We ended up just trying to play gangster.
Shit.
Running away from home, not wanting to follow rules, really thinking this is the path to go.
How old were you at this point?
I started getting arrested at 13.
At 13.
By 14, I was sentenced for 12 years for murder.
God damn.
14, damn.
Yeah, 14.
So like tell us how that happened.
So here we go. You remember when I was saying to y'all, man, I was like, yo, I could have gone this way, but I went that way. This right here, what he's talking about, man. This is what we talking about. This is what he's talking about right now. 14 years old, he caught a murder case. A murder case. Now, he didn't pull the trigger. And I'm not going to go over that part of the interview. If you want, you know what I mean, go check it out. Go watch it. You know what I mean? It is very compelling to hear what he was doing and how all this occurred. You know what I mean? But the story is all too familiar for me. I understand it. It's wrong, and I never did it. You know what I mean? But the way that they did it, but they were kids. You know what I mean? Like, gunplay didn't really come into the picture for me until, you know, I was in my later teens. The first time I ever had someone put a gun in my face, I was 15. So that marked the beginning of, all right, I'm gonna need some heat because these streets are cold. You know what I mean? I got caught slipping, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was with the wrong people. It wasn't even a group that I was with. It was one dude in particular that was with us. You know what I mean? Set it off. And, you know what I mean? I almost lost my life that night. He almost lost his. We thought they were going to kill him. They kidnapped him. They beat him. They tortured that dude all night. We didn't see him for like a day. When we finally, he got home the following day. We went to see him 2 days after the event. We went to see him. Well, it was 2 nights. We went, and his mom got mad at us when we walked in the door. We was making sure, is he alive or dead? We didn't know. But yeah, they did a number on him. But he deserved it. Just keep it 100. I'm not gonna get details or anything like that. I mean, just because it's not like I'm worried about statutes of limitations. Like I said, no one died. It was a robbery attempt gone bad, and the people he tried to rob were the wrong ones, right? And like I said, they showed up. We knew nothing about what was going on, but we were standing next to the dude, and that was the first time I had a pistol in my face. And after that, like, all right, you know what I mean? All right, it's time to do grown up stuff now. All right, I'm gonna need some heat. And after that, like, nah. And to this day, you be hard pressed to catch me without a weapon. Hard pressed indeed. You know what I mean? I don't care what the law states. You know what I mean? So he catches the case at 14 years old, bro. A murder case. And, you know, we're going to fast forward a little bit. We got just a few more time hacks that I wanted to definitely look into. But yeah, Brother Ayoka said a friend had 13 keys in his mama's house. Wow. Sister Candace, you can't play boxing and you can't play gangster. You can't. Those are full contact sports. You know what I mean? It's like playing a football game, man. Full contact, bro. You get out there, you're going to get hit. If you're on that field, you're going to get hit. That's just how it works. But boxing, absolutely. You can't play gangster, man. It ain't no game. Like, if you out there, you gangster like that, man, you better stay on your tippy toes, bro. Your head better be on the swivel, man, because somebody coming for your neck. And that's just how it is. I don't care if you repping the hood, you know what I mean, or you just out there, you know what I mean, you got a crew, you out there hitting licks. Like, I don't care. You better keep your head on a swivel. If you bout that world's about you. You know what I mean? It doesn't see you until you a part of it. Once you're a part of it, it's on. At least when I was growing up, back in the day, you could still be a civilian. If you were just a hardworking Joe, you got passes, man. You weren't about that life. You know what I mean? You got passes. Nowadays, these kids don't care. And I'm talking about Cincinnati. They don't care. There are no rules. They do what they do. You wrong place, right time, you getting it. That's just how it is now. But back then, you get a pass. I got a pass that night. I got a pass. Like, the woman's nephew walked up and saw it was me and my dude Hobart. What's up, Hob? Shout out to you, bro. You know what I'm saying? And he knew Hobart. And I was Hobart's dude, and they let us go. Like, he was like, Hobart ain't got nothing to do with this. And they let us go. She had that pistol square in my forehead. I'm telling you, less than 2 feet away. She would not have missed me. Y'all know I got a big head. She would not have missed me, bro. Man, she'd have pulled that trigger, man. It would have been dum-dum juice all over the street. But now, ain't no rules, bro. They get you where they get you. Everybody's in play. So they let me go, man. They let me go. Look at Brother Hayoka. The first time for me was in 2016. Gun in my face. Oh, bro, yeah, by 2016, yeah, I was already 2016, man. I was a real civilian by then, man. I stayed away from it. Brother Timothy, check in. Yeah, bro. You know what I mean? Check it in. Y'all know what it is. You know what I'm saying? Give it up, smooth jack, all that. All that. You know what I'm saying? Them streets. I'm just shocked I made it out. Brother Charleston, catches a murder at 14. So we're going to get to the part where he's, talking about how he did his time and where he did his time. Which that even at that point, like, this dude, like, if y'all go back and watch this, because you hear what he's talking about. And when you watch it, pay close attention to his eyes, man. When he's telling these stories, he's walking, he's not drunk, he's not high. Pay close attention to his eyes. That's PTSD. That's the 1,000-yard stare. Now, when people ask, like, what does it look like? It looks like that. That's the 1,000-yard stare, bro. And the reason he has that, he talks about it when he tells the story of how he caught this murder, him and 3 of his friends. Again, we're not going to watch it, but, you know, go back and watch it, y'all. It's very powerful. But we're going to skip ahead to where he was actually doing time and, like, you know, what his mindset was while he was doing time. Again, this was a very good video. Again, shout out to Fresh and Myron for putting this together. Big Mo, Chris, Bam. This is a really, really good interview. I hope y'all are learning something from it, man. It just gives you an insight into the people who came up. You know what I mean? It just gives you insight. You know what I mean? So let's check this out.
Facility.
Yeah.
That was
So they tried you as a juvenile, but they tried the others as adults?
Yeah, they tried the others as adults.
Okay. And what, did they all get life?
Nah.
And they charged him as a juvenile
They
because he
didn't
was
start
14.
giving children life until probably about the mid 90s, late 90s.
Okay.
The shooter was actually given 75 years, where he only have to do 1/3, 1/4.
So he's out by now.
He should have been out by now.
Okay.
The oldest got 99 years. He ended up going back on appeal and getting 25 years. He's out.
Okay.
You talk to any of these guys now?
Nah. The other guy, DJ, was a kid who had never been in no trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who called and reported the car stolen. He ended up getting out on bond, so he was the only one that actually got out. He probably would end up getting probation.
Yeah.
His mother moved him to Oklahoma, back where they was from, and I guess he ended up running from the police and was killed in a high-speed chase.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
So I go into the boys' home with a 12-year sentence.
Yep.
I can get out at 18.
Mm-hmm.
So on my 18th birthday, 30 days before your 18th birthday, you go back before your sentencing judge, and your judge looks at your file, looks at the state recommendation, you know, a lot of what your victim has to say, and then a lot of what you did while you was in the juvenile custody. And they made a decision whether you either get paroled, and you would be on parole until your 21st birthday from 18 to 21, or they could transfer you into the prison system where now you're finna finish the rest of your time in the adult prison system,
Mm-hmm.
or they recommit you back into the custody of the youth.
Okay.
I spent 4 years trying to go to prison.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, remember I told you,
He spent 4 years trying to go to prison. Like, I want to go to prison. Like, this is his life's goal, is to get into prison. Remember, he's talking about the movie Penitentiary, talking about the lifestyle, you know, gangsterism and all this kind of stuff. He about to get into that some more. It's crazy. Brother Hayoka, so you don't think he's got therapy for PTSD? I think he's gotten therapy maybe recently. I would say he's gotten therapy since he's found success within, you know, social media, YouTube and all that. I'm sure he's making some money now. I don't think he got therapy before. I'm pretty sure he went through some mandatory classes in that while he was locked up, but he talks about that. The classes he took was about drug addiction. And remember, PTSD, that wasn't really talked about like it is now, right? It just wasn't. So that look, when you see somebody, it's that look. When you talk to people and they get that distant stare, that's what that is, man. It's just, some of us have seen some real life things. And it's, you know what I'm saying? It's like looking into hell itself. And it just, you're going to have that look, bro, that stare. And especially when they go into deep thought and they think about some of the stuff that they have done, some of the things that they have witnessed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool until I hear certain noises. You know what I mean? It's not even necessarily loud noises to set it off. It's I'm cool until I hear, you know, like if someone's beating a rug to like clean it, you know, every now and then you hear somebody beating a rug. Sometimes if the rug is big enough, it gives a sound. It reminds me of some stuff that I witnessed and some things, let's say things that happened when I was younger. That affects me. Fireworks still affect me. You know what I mean? Like real good fireworks, the zip pops, they really affect me still to this day. You know what I mean? Hearing certain slaps, You know what I mean? Like that kind of affects because it triggers things. You know what I mean? Hearing screams in the night, it bothers me. If you hear, like sometimes kids are playing and they'll scream like a high pitched scream. If they're like teenagers, it'll set me off. You know what I mean? So it's certain little things like that. And I bet you he deals with the same stuff. You know what I mean? So, and I'm military. He's not. This dude's like a ghetto vet. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that I think that now he's probably gotten some help because he can afford it. But I don't think that's something that they did while he was in the system. We got Beautifully Animated Speaks in the house. What's good, love? Good to see you. Welcome. You know what I mean? So and you know, and shout out to y'all, man, for rocking out with me, y'all. Please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. Please do. And we just gonna keep rocking it out. Beautifully Animated. Yeah, I don't see how you can get rid of triggers. You can't. You just learn how to cope with triggers. That's just, you need to know what it is and know what's going on so you can remove yourself. And that's the best thing I ever learned. And that's what I tell folks. Like you know what your triggers are. You know how you feel. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to mean like your feelings, but like you ask that day, you know, like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, my trigger is really short today. I should stay home. You know what I mean? Or this stuff is going on right now. I should stay in the house. You know what I mean? And that's the best advice I give folks. Like if you deal with this sort of thing, just know when it's bad, don't push it. Or I think I'll be okay. Nah, don't do that. I think I'll be okay. Then you go out and someone bumps into you or says the wrong thing to you. Next thing you know, you sitting in the back of the car and you got some sort of case hanging over you. So yeah, that's the best thing I could say about what PTSD, man, when you know those triggers and you know that, okay, let me stay home. Let me surround myself with my people so I can't get myself in trouble. But let's listen to what he has to say, though. This is some really good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know nothing about gangs until I started going to juvenile. So when I first started getting exposed to gangs, shit, it was everything I was looking for. I couldn't wait to join. So when I got to the state school, I was in a facility where
you're 18 now at this point, right?
I'm 14.
Oh, 14. Okay. As soon as so after you got convicted and they sent you away.
Yeah. So I went to a facility where they house Texas' most violent offenders in the state.
Yeah.
So everybody was there for capital murder.
Which jail?
Getting state school.
Okay.
So it was capital.
They're gonna say the R word, y'all. We just gonna let it rock. I'm not even gonna try. So I was trying to figure out a way to blur it or beep it or, you know, maybe I'll hit a button.
Murder, attempted capital murder, attempted murder, arson, kidnapping, rape, and child molestation. So that's all that was in that facility.
Yeah.
From ages 12 to 21.
Okay.
The minimal amount of time a person had was 40 years.
Okay.
So I grew up with kids who killed them.
Yeah, mind y'all, he's talking about children. He's in an institution for minors who have done the absolute worst crimes imaginable.
Mothers and their father.
Yeah.
I grew up with kids who raped 6-month-old babies.
Wow.
I grew up with kids who killed 80-something-year-old women, tortured them and raped.
Yeah.
I grew up with some of the most violent kids that had some of the most violent history of crimes in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
So I go into this facility, a little bitty guy. Within 2 years, I ran the facility.
So you're 16 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I joined the gang. I was like 15.
Okay. What gang did you join?
What gang was it?
Rolling 60 Crips.
Okay.
So you had Rolling 60 Crips. You had Latin Kings. You had folks. You had Black Gangster Disciples, Spanish Gangster Disciples, Black Disciples. You had Altadena Block Crips, Original Swamp Crips, Trey 5-7 Crips, Rolling 30s. Who? I mean, you had.
What? Tell.
This long folk. This.
That just shows you that Fresh really doesn't know what's up with American culture. You know what I mean? Shout out to him, man. Like Fresh, he came from a really good background, bro. He's sitting there like, YSL? Nah, man. We talking about the OGs. Most of those sets came out of South Central. You know what I mean? And then there was the East Coast thing. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy how that works. The culture just swept over America like a tsunami. So think about that. Like you have Reaganomics hit, You have people losing their jobs. You know what I mean? Unemployment goes up. Inflation went up. Inflation was up under Carter, but it still went up. It came down a little bit, I guess, under Reaganomics with the stuff that they were doing. It worked for some Americans. It was a really great time for some Americans, and it was a really hard time for others, right? It was a hard time for us. All the factories went away. All the jobs went away. All the opportunity went away. It was replaced with government subsidies. You know what I mean? And then we had crack, and then all the weapons hit the streets. All that happened within like a 5-year span. And then it only got worse from there. The music began to change. You know what I mean? It went from the colorful, you know, Kwame ain't singing about polka dots and high top fades with with Kid and Play. You know what I mean? And now we into the gangsters. Now you got Ice-T, King T, NWA. You know what I'm saying? You got E40 came along a little bit later. You had Above the Law. They had they track was Now I Got a Murder Rap, Above the Law. I'll never forget that. I remember that track stays in my head because the last time I saw my man Lil Dave, and I talked about Lil Dave earlier in this stream, the last time I saw Lil Dave alive, that he was playing that song in his car. He had an Eclipse. He had a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Dave was a hard worker. Always was working hard. Always out there getting legal money. He's playing Now I Got a Murder Rap. Above the Law was like they came from under NWA and all them. I remember that. It's like the last time I saw him alive. And one of the last things he said to me, man, we was talking about this whole gangster thing because Cincinnati by then was, you know, it was popping them things. Matter of fact, witnessed someone get shot that night. The last night I saw Lil Dave, that was the second time I almost got shot. And I watched the dudes, you know, get shot up. And I knew both parties. It was what it was. You know what I mean? But Little Dave told me that night, told all of us that night. We was talking about, you know, being tough and being this and that. Dave was like, man, I don't care if you Superman. He's like, I don't care if you Superman. Be careful what block you on, bro. Be careful who neighborhood you go into. He's like, 'cause them dudes might have kryptonite tipped bullets. That was the last thing Lil Dave said to me. You know what I mean? To us. It was a few of us, man. We laughed it off or whatever. We dapped it up. Hugged him. He drove off. I never saw him again. You know what I mean? Like I said, Lil Dave died. He died, I want to say, a year later. Yeah, that was like 91 when I saw him. That was 90. That was the summer of 90. It was right before I enlisted in the Army. I was waiting to go to the Army that night. Yep. It was, yep. That's the last time I saw Lil Dave. He was like, I don't care if you Superman. The dudes in that hood might have kryptonite bullets. That stayed with me forever. Forever. But this is what they're talking about. Like, so at this time, you know, Charleston White is out there, you know, doing murders, getting locked up in juvenile facilities. You know, he's like in baby Leavenworth, it sounds like. But let's listen to what else he was going through.
This is the start in the South.
Yep.
This is just now leaving California.
Yep.
It's done planted its flags in the South. And so
this is what by this point
this is
we're
91. This is 91, 92.
Okay. So the murder happened in 91.
So I'm 14. So 92, I'm 15.
Okay. All right.
So 92, I'm 15.
Yep.
I'm in the gang. And at this time, we going into 93. And you know, the Snoop Dogg Chronic album hit. So now it's Crippin' and Blood and all over America now.
Yep.
So by the time the Snoop Dogg Chronic album hit, the most southern states have become indoctrinated into the gang culture now.
Yep.
So I'm in the boys' home. I'm right, mom saying I'm crippin' now.
Mm-hmm.
I no more. You know, I'm right, so because I'm proud of this, nigga. I'm thinking I've accomplished you know, what I want to be in life. I got a new family, and there's men in it that I look up to and admire, and I picked this family and they picked me.
Mm-hmm.
So I pledged all my allegiance to it while I was in there, and so you know, I spent 4 years trying to go to prison, because I thought that's the path to manhood. By this time, my brother had gone to prison. All of my older male friends were in prison, had caught drug cases and murder cases at 18 and 19 years old. I'm 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
They're writing me letters from prison. My partner, Jason Anderson, he write me. He making prison sound fun. I think he was on I think that nigga was on Telford unit. And that was a young unit. Boy, them niggas, man, he made that shit sound fun. I couldn't wait to go. Boy, I could, on top of what my uncle and I already told me.
Man.
On top of what I'm seeing, the penitentiary. Now, we don't left the black exploitation era. Now we're in the gangster era. So as I'm playing gangster, trying to develop this gangster mindset as a teenager, we got gangster videos now.
Yep.
All the gangster videos in the 90s had some reflection to a jail, prison bar.
Y'all know he ain't lying, right? Y'all know he ain't lying. All the videos, all the movies. Y'all know he ain't lying. Brother Helka is saying a way to deal with PTSD is Kirtan Kiri singing meditation. There's tons of ways to deal with PTSD, bro. Tons. I know it depends on the individual, depends on what works for you. You know what I mean? Like singing meditation, I'll sit down and, you know, I'll quiet my mind and I'm a thinker. I'm a deep thinker. It's a form of meditation. You know what I mean? I'll sit back and I'll just think. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll have some music playing. Sometimes it'll be something on TV, but I'm not paying attention to it. I'm just focused, you know what I mean, on me, and I'm thinking. There's tons of ways to deal with it. You know, you feel the rage building up. At least I do. And I think PTSD probably hits different people different ways. I feel it coming. And again, you got to know yourself, man. Like we always talk about the art of war. We talk about Sun Tzu, Master Tzu. What does he say? You know what I mean? Know yourself, know your enemy, man. I know myself. I know when it's about to happen. Most of the time, you know what I mean? 85, 90% of the time, I can control it. Sometimes I can't. You know what I mean? Sometimes it just pops off. Somebody might do something or whatever, for whatever reason. It just pops off and I can't, it's over. There's nothing I can do. It's not that there's nothing I can do. It's just, I don't want to stop it. You know what I mean? And I tell people all the time, like, I'm a great guy, man. I really am. I try to be the best man I can, but I done did some things. I done seen some things. And I tell folks all the time, man, don't let this persona fool you. That's why I got such a problem with, you know, the fake tough people, you know what I mean, on the internet with these icons and hide behind these icons. And they see you in real life and they think they did say some fly stuff. They want to troll you or whatever. And they catch you outside and they say something because they think they know you. And I tell them all the time, like, bro, you gotta be careful, man. It's like the Incredible Hulk, bro. You want Dr. Banner? I'm Dr. Banner. But if you push the wrong buttons, you're gonna see the Incredible Hulk, man. You know what I mean? And then once that happens, then what? Now you scared. So that, because I know myself, I'm able to avoid those situations a lot better. And you get that through therapy. You get that through talking to pros. You get that to talking to other people who share the same thing. You know what I mean? It's real though, y'all. PTSD ain't no joke. If you know anybody with PTSD, man, for real, just be there for them, man. Just make sure, let them know that you are there for them no matter what, man, because that's what you need. You got to have people in your corner. Sister Candace, our people don't tend to go to the doctor. It should come as no surprise that mental health services are not promoted or utilized widely. She's absolutely right. Shout out to Charlemagne the God. He's always talking about that in his first book. I think it's called Black Privilege. In his first one, I read that book, and Charlemagne is always talking about mental health, and as he should. I mean, it is, mental health is so serious, and we need to work on that. You know what I mean, Brother Timothy? Yeah, Larry Hoover, absolutely. You know what I mean. And let's see, Brother Hayaka, this is that beautifully animated. You can get PTSD through violent encounters or witness an encounter, and even by it can be passed down. Like I've heard that they say that it can be passed down through your genes. Those are the smart people. That's what they say. Nightish, Compton's Most Wanted, yeah. WC in the Mass Circle, MC8. That's for Brother Timmy. Yeah, like all them, bro, all them. You know what I mean? DJ Quick, absolutely. That's some brother from Nightish. Yeah, man. You know what I mean? I just want to catch up on the chat, and then we're going to finish up. We only got like a few more minutes, y'all, and we're going to finish this up. I lied to y'all. I'm not going to drop the link. I'm sorry I lied to you guys. I thought we would be able to get through it faster, but we're coming up on 2 hours. And I'm gonna wrap this up here after a few more minutes of video, a little bit more commentary, and then we're done. All right, Brother Helka, 17 on the chat, 8 likes. Hit the, oh yeah, please hit the like button, y'all. Please check it out. You know what I mean? We dropping, we you know what I mean? Uncle Saint had to take y'all deep back to the beginnings, to the origin, man. I'm telling y'all stuff I ain't talked about in a long time, bro. In a long time. And I'm here to tell you, thanks for being here for me, because it really does help me to bring this stuff up and talk about it. You know what I mean? It really does help me to listen to Brother Charleston White here. It really does. I look at him and I'm like, bro, that's me, man. A lot of people are like, well, that could have been me. Like, no, that is me. I just went a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad I did. Night is too short. Mac Dre, Richie Ricks, rapping Forte. Yep. Y'all old school people's up in here. MC Breed, Master P and the Twins, absolutely. Ghetto Boys, legends. Y'all dropping it. Y'all dropping it for real. It takes self evolution to get to a point of knowing when things are coming within yourself. You have to do your homework on yourself. Absolutely know yourself. Sister Tia Kiki is in the house. What's good, sis? Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming through. Always happy to see you. But like, okay, it's not a joke. That's for sure. Yeah, talking about PTSD, man. It's the real. You know what I mean? And Beautiful Aim is like, I'm the same with anger. People with real issues don't want it. People without issues want to fake it. It's like a game. Stop it. Absolutely clown world out there. And that's facts. She ain't lying. Sister Candace, our signs and symptoms are often diminished or misinterpreted. And that goes across other areas of medicine as well, such as women in pregnancy. Yeah, such as men in prostate cancer. Get your prostate checked, y'all, fellas. Especially if you old like me, get your prostate checked. So let's go ahead and finish up. And again, thank y'all so much for rocking with me. But let's listen to how that gangster culture hit Texas.
From NWA, express yourself.
Yep.
Every video had a reference to a nigga being killed. Back then, it wasn't guns in videos. It was dead bodies, outline chalks of dead bodies. The symbolism of death.
Murder was a case.
Come
Yeah.
on, homie.
Yeah.
Soon, dog.
Yep.
Connect the dots.
Yeah.
So this is a gangster culture. Even the women want gangsters, or they want something that look like a gangster.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the point where O-Dog, the character and the imagery of the long braids, tank top tucked into the dickies with the gun now, the O-Dog image. Nigga, every young black kid in America want to be an O-Dog, just like they.
Hey, he ain't lying. I wasn't even a young kid when I looked at that. I'm like, yeah, that's gangster. He ain't lying about that.
want to be an NBA young boy.
Yeah.
A Dirk, a King Von. Nigga, I wanted to kill. I wanted to be that. I wanted whatever came with gangsters. If raping came with gangsters, if killing came with gangsters, if lying to your mama, stealing out your mama purse, stealing your mama car, whatever came with being a gangster, I wanted it.
If you had a dad, you think it would be different?
Much different. Yeah, every nigga I know with a daddy kicking in. No, yeah. It has to be a strong father though.
Yeah.
Can't be a weak one. Can't be a dope fiend nigga. Can't be an alcoholic daddy. It got to be a strong daddy.
In the movie
Whatever
Boys in the Hood, there's a scene.
And that part right there, man, that was the difference. That's the difference between Brother Charleston White and DL Saint. I have a strong father in my life. I had a very strong father. I had strong uncles, right? All the women were strong, but there was a positive, a very strong male influence, right? The reason I didn't take pistols to school, and it's not like that I was going to hurt anybody at school, but the reason I didn't do it wasn't because the school rules, it was because my father would get mad at me. He didn't mind me having the things on me if I'm out in the street to protect myself because he trained me up. He knew I knew what I was doing. He was like, nah, man, you can't take it to school. That was the only reason. You know what I mean? When I look at these active shooters and stuff like that, I wonder, like, do they have strong male role models, dominant men that they can look up to in their life? And probably not. They got fathers, but they got weak ones. Like Brother Charles was saying, they can't be weak. You got to have a strong, positive male role model in your life. And we're coming up on the last little bit here, y'all. Like I said, this is real stuff. When I saw this interview, I'm like, I know I got to react to this. So let's watch this last little bit and we'll wrap it up.
That presence of a father, and that the shame that a son can feel from disappointing a father is much more greater than gang influence.
Respect.
Much more greater than gang influence.
Charleston.
I was going to say,
Please
just
go
so we
ahead.
can finish
You
up the
go.
prison stuff.
Yeah.
So you're in there for 2 years. You're running the prison. So you said you went to the judge now at 18 years old.
Yeah, so 4 years.
What did they end up deciding?
So by the time I was 18, I was there almost 4 years.
Mhm.
Only thing that I had done positive, I got my GED, and I completed a chemical dependency treatment program.
Okay.
Other than that, I was in some of the worst behavior modification programs that they had.
You were getting in fights and everything because you're gang related at this point. So everybody's beef is your beef.
Yeah, I spent summer 1993, I spent 9 months in a 23-hour lockdown program called the Giddings GRU program, the Giddings Resuscitate, whatever that shit was. So I spent 9 months. I was on 3
in solitary.
Yeah, in solitary.
23-1.
Yeah, and I did 9 months.
That fuck with your head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I did.
He did 9 months of solitary confinement as a child. Just wanted to throw that in there.
At least 3 different 30-day solitary confinement.
So is it safe to say they moved you over to the prison when you were 18?
No,
they didn't. They kept you in that.
Yeah. You couldn't have made nobody believe I wasn't going to prison.
Yeah.
My mother used to always say, "Son, God got the final say so." And I said, "No, Mama, these white people sending me to prison," and I believed I was going. I wanted to go. The state recommendation was for me to be transferred to the adult prison system on my 18th birthday. There was 4 people. Miss Pumple, Miss Belinda Jean Pumple, God rest her soul. Mr. Claude Mathis, Mr. Herman Nelson, and Miss Donna DeRocha. Miss Donna DeRocha was my caseworker. Mr. Nelson, Mr. Mathis. Mr. Mathis worked in the mornings. Mr. Nelson worked at night, and Miss Pumple was the supervisor at one point in time on the dorm. My lawyer subpoenaed them because I had been there for so long. Like 2 years of my files was missing. So it was hard for the judge to really base a decision.
Yeah.
Because you got to think back then they're still doing everything manually.
Of course, yeah.
And
there's
so,
no computers really.
Yeah,
There's no
so,
centralized computer system at this point.
So I
it's all paper.
I done went from dorm 3 to dorm 4, from dorm 4 to dorm 6, from dorm 6 to dorm 8, from dorm 8 back to dorm 6, from dorm 6 to 7B, from 7B to 5A, from 5A to 3B, plus the 9 months in the GRU program. I done been all over. Many people done lost all kind of files.
Yeah.
So what my lawyer did, man, my lawyer was smart enough to subpoena the workers who worked on the dorm with me.
Yep.
And so they came back and even though on paper, I seemed like one of the worst kids there. They was able to come back and
give positive testimony for you
and say, well, how do you know? Well, based on this negative leadership, this kid got potential to be somebody, Your Honor.
Yeah.
It's really a good, so they broke down. So rather than the judge going with the state's recommendation, she went with the people who work with the kid every day.
Okay. There you go. That makes sense.
And it's funny, y'all know I'm not a religious person, right? I'm your friendly neighborhood heathen. I know all the stories, right? Because I was raised in a tradition. But there are some things that goes on in life that there's some things that I've seen and things that have happened to me that I can't explain away with science, right? And I'm listening to this story and what Brother Charleston said. His mother said, "God has the final say." Like he's talking about this, like Charleston. We're gonna get to the rest of the story about what happened. You know what I mean? Because he was like, he's planning on going to prison. That's what he wanted to do pretty much for his whole life. That's gonna be his end goal, was to go to prison. He's 18. He's ready to go. They ready, do something. But obviously something happened, right? Because he's sitting here telling this story. So a few minutes ago, I was telling you about the last time I saw my dude, Little Dave. Right? That night, I told y'all that someone got shot. Right? That night, I told y'all that was the second time that I had a gun in my face. But I didn't tell you the story. I wasn't going to tell y'all the story. But what he said about God having the final say, and what I just said about things that I've seen, things that have happened to me in my life that I can't explain away with science. Well, this particular night was one of those nights. Right? So we outside, we at this club, this place called Mr. Kelly's in Kennedy Heights. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Right? We right across the street from where my cousin JB, who's with me, grew up. The name of the street is Tyne Avenue, right? Montgomery and Tyne Avenue. We at Mr. Kelly's. I went to school with Mr. Kelly's son, Martin Kelly. Shout out to you, brother. One hell of a musician, right? We both were musicians. We both played the saxophone. Marty went on to do all sorts of stuff. I think there's not an instrument he can't play now. A savant. But I'm out in the streets. We at Mr. Kelly's. We right there at Lil Dave's car. We kicking it with Kennedy Heights, because this is where I spent all my summers. This is where we grew up, Kennedy Heights. I'm from Avondale. My father in Bond Hill. We all east side, Cincinnati. But Bond Hill, Avondale, Kennedy Heights, Madisonville, that's all east side. Sometimes got drama. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes there's problems. Sometimes. All right, so that night was one of those times. Now, I'm out there with Lil Dave, all of Kennedy Heights, and I'm not going to use any names, right? I'm old school. Y'all know what it is. So the shooter is with Kennedy Heights, and they playing Now I Got a Murder Rap, and the shooter got his pistol, he got a 380 in his waistband. He holding up his shirt every time they play, like, now I got a murder rap, and he dancing so you can see the pistol. We didn't care. We got a 12 gauge in the trunk. Told you, it's very rare that I'm not armed, but the 12 gauge is in our trunk. My cousin got the keys inside. But everything's cool. All is well. Doors are open. You can get in and out. It's not a problem. Kennedy Heights is kicking it. Bond Hill show up. Bond Hill was like, what's up? Some people with Kennedy Heights, like the shooter, knew Bond Hill was there, so he started talking that nonsense. But again, he got a pistol, so he ain't worried about it. So he started talking. K Heights get up with him. Bond Hill over there like, what, you talking to us? So somebody from Bond Hill say that. Bond Hill step up. It's finna be a rumble. I'm from Avondale. My cousin living in Bond Hill, but he grew up in Kennedy Heights. He like, man, I'm sitting this one out, bro. So we just sitting there, right outside the door of the club. We just sitting there. Where they got the shrubbery, right? It's like a little half wall or something. We just kind of sitting there. We watching it go down. Bond Hill, Kennedy Heights. They going at it. All hands. Remember, Cincinnati, when we grew up, you had to know how to use your hands. People in Cincinnati, they do two things good. We nice with our hands, and we know how to talk to women, right? Boom. Here it goes, the rumble. You know what I mean? Pretty much a stalemate. Now Bond Hill getting into Kennedy Heights. Bop, bop, dudes was falling. It's all hands like pow, pow. You know what I'm saying? Like Bond Hill, like they got some fighters. And a lot of them fighters happen to be there. We went to their school. So not only is it Bond Hill versus Kennedy Heights, but it's also Withrow versus Woodward. It was like two kind of little things or whatever, right? Rivalry kind of stuff. Still just a fight. Next thing you know, the shooter pulls up his shirt. It's a surge. Bond Hill was pushing Kennedy Heights. So the shooter is running away from Bond Hill, pulls out his 380 and fires 2 or 3 rounds. Cack, cack, cack. He hit somebody from Bond Hill. Now Bond Hill running. So the surge was going this way. Cack, cack, cack. Now the surge is going this way. Bond Hill take off. Nobody from Bond Hill had heat. This was still this was like the transition. Only the gangsters had heat. And this dude, the shooter, was definitely a wannabe gangster, kind of like Charleston White. This guy really wanted that thug life, although he had everything growing up, just like Charleston White. Now that I think about it, just like Charleston White. Good family, mom and dad in the house, live in the best part of Kennedy Heights. They got property, everything else. Just like, that's how he probably got the heat. Because he had the extra money to go buy it. So he shoot. Bond Hill take off. Right? And Kennedy Heights ran. Everybody ran because it's still early with the gunplay. People didn't really understand protocol yet. No protocol was established. Right? So Bond Hill knows somebody got hit. They call the paramedics. Paramedics show up. Police show up. The paramedics, like one police off one car. They put dude in the vehicle. They got him in the vehicle. Close up the doors. He was hitting the shoulder. Like he walked into the vehicle. They had to put him on a gurney and he just walked in and sat him down. They looking at him or whatever. I don't know how many times he got hit. I want to say 2. I knew dude. Played on the football team with him. I knew dude. Went to middle school with him. Was at the same high school. That night changed his life too. Again, I'm not going to use any names. I know the shooter, grew up with him. I know the victim, grew up with him. Both neighborhoods, grew up in both. You know what I mean? So me and my cousin sitting on the wall. The bouncers heard the gunshots. They closed and locked the doors. These are the big tough dudes. Oh, they shooting. Closed and locked the doors. So we sitting there, me and my cousin, like, paramedic drove off, police drove off. No detective, no investigation, nothing. Mind you, someone just got shot. Right? This is the late 80s. Someone just got shot. This is 89, 90. This was my senior year of high school. Someone just got shot. Police show up, didn't ask a single question. That's why Kennedy Heights kind of melted into the background. They leave. We can't get into the club. Bond Hill is shitting around like they can't get to their cars or whatever. Their friends are back in the club. They don't know what to do. Kennedy Heights come back. And they start beating anybody they can find that they knew was from Bond Hill. I'm talking about beating them. This is when I keep telling y'all about certain noises set me off. Because I done heard people take vicious beatings and there's sounds that go along with that. Getting hit with bats, getting hit with, you know what I'm saying, with clubs and whatnot, getting stabbed. There's sounds to go along with that, getting shot. So me and my cousin just sitting there like, we ain't got nothing to do with this. They done found everybody they could find from Bond Hill. They done beat them viciously. Now there's a crowd in front of me and my cousin. Sorry, this is a long story, y'all, but I just want to get this off real quick. Crowds in front of me and my cousin. We just sitting there. So you hear a voice in the back. They from Bond Hill. I'm like, bro, I'm from Avondale. It was like, fuck Avondale. When I say a crowd, I'm talking about a crowd. They at least 25 strong. There's a dude in front. Shooter number 2. He in front. That was his cat that just committed the shooting. They like this. He got a 380. It might have been the same pistol. I don't know. He got a 380. He pulled the thing out. Y'all from Bond Hill. Hey, man, I'm from Avondale. My cousin grew up right across the street. We can see the apartment he grew up in. Little Dave gone. Everybody I know, because I'm there with the West Side, like my people from the Faye, they inside. They don't know what's going on. They ain't there talking to women doing their thing. My crew inside, just me and my cousin. Like I told you, you very rarely catch me without a weapon. My weapon in the trunk. My cousin got the keys. Yeah, we got a 12 gauge, but it's in the trunk. It's 25 dudes in front of us. The main dude got a weapon. 380. Like, damn. You know what I mean? He walking around. You know he want to shoot because his homeboy just did it. He's trying to get it off, right? This guy, again, I know who he is. This guy got a problem with my cousin's brother, my big cousin. They got problem. They done had beef. So he know who we are. He don't care. He trying to set it off so he could get back at my people. I'm just sitting there like, damn. My cousin get up, try to run. I grab him, pull him right back down. Like, man, where you going? You might be able to outrun these dudes, but you ain't outrunning them bullets. We're just going to sit here and it's going to go to where it's going to go, bro. So we just sitting there like, there's no way out. This is it. I'm sitting there thinking like, a couple more weeks, I'll be in the Army. That's all I'm thinking. Like, oh, I guess that's not going to happen. And then there was a voice from the back of the crowd. Like I said, they about 20, 25 deep. There was a voice from the back of the crowd. Like, that's JB. It's my cousin nickname. Dude come up from the crowd, from the back of the crowd, run up on my cousin, dap him up, hug him like, it's JB. The whole crowd was like, all right then, all right. Shooter number 2 puts this thing back in his waist, and they all disappear. They all disappear. 20 minutes later, the bouncers open up the club. It's 2:00 in the morning. Then everybody got to get out of the club. All my people come out or whatever. We get in the car and go home. A year and a half ago, my cousin was down here in Tampa. We were just kicking it, having a good old time. And I brought that up. Hey, man, who was that dude at Mr. Kelly's that night that saved us from getting shot? And I was naming names because, again, we knew who shooter number 2 was. I know his first and last name. I know where the nigga at right now. You know what I mean? And he was like, he looked at me. Cousin looked at me. He was like, man, I don't know who that guy is. I didn't know him that night. To this day, I don't know who that man is. What did Brother Charleston White say? God has the last say, right? You know what I mean? Like this is where I am with my spirituality, man. Like, I can't say it don't exist. I'm not saying there isn't a God. I'm not saying there is a God. You know what I mean? But when people talk about angels, when people talk about stuff like that, I don't really debate them as much after that day. Because in my mind, I'm thinking maybe there are angels. Because my cousin to this day don't know who that man was. This certainly saved our lives that night in Cincinnati in front of Mr. Kelly's. I just wanted to get that off real quick, man. We're going to finish up right here. And we're going to hear about Charles, what Brother Charleston was talking about, how he got out of the system, which is also a good story. Again, when people say stuff like God has the last say, or when people talk about angels, I tend to listen.
So let me ask you this.
My lawyer was short, smart, man. Bad motherfucker called Mallory, man.
You mentioned before that the victim also had a say.
Yeah, they was there.
In this case, so the victim's family was there.
They was there. They're the victim's family.
What did they say?
His sister came. His wife didn't show up. His nieces came. And man, they were very forgiving.
They forgave you.
Yeah, they forgave me.
Wow.
How did that make you feel when they forgave you?
Something inside of me changed that day. I can't describe what happened. To this day.
Was this when you were 18 at that hearing?
Yeah, I was.
So they came to the hearing.
Yeah.
And they forgave you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Something happened that day. I can't describe it. I just know I couldn't go back and be the same gang banging little kid that I wanted to be.
Is that when it just like snapped and you were like, I'm out of this shit?
That day, that moment, it's like something spiritually happened. Well, for one, because I'm listening to what the juvenile workers are saying about me.
Okay.
I've been cripping saying, and I've been hearing all this horrible shit about you going to prison, you horrible. So now I'm listening to what these people are saying about me. And in my mind, remember I told you I was taught to not trust white people, to be racist. So in my mind, I'm saying, why would these two white women, why would they be doing this? I'm asking myself, if they sit, I'm saying, man, why would they be doing this? Then
it was his daughter and his niece that got understanding and forgave you?
On top of the fact, the juvenile workers, I'm saying, why would the juvenile worker be putting their job on the line to come say this good shit about me when they know I've been acting bad?
Because they saw the good inside of you.
There you go.
Where you didn't see it.
There you go. Where I couldn't see it. They believing in me when I don't believe in nothing but the game.
Charles, on a serious note here, brother, what would you say to people watching right now to kind of curb till this process? Because you went through it, going to jail, being the bad guy, trying to be somebody that you're not. How would you tell people what you learn from it, how they could like overcome this as well? And not go through it themselves.
Some people have to go through it. You can't stop it. You can't prevent it. Because you didn't create the situations and the circumstances that they was born into. You can't, or we can't repair the hurt and the pain that most of the kids have when we encounter them. Nigga, they hateful and angry. We can't undo that. So based on their choices and their decisions, a lot of them have to go through what I went through. What made the difference in my life, homie? I had people. I went into an institution and into an environment where people really believe they can make a difference in children's life. I got in trouble during a time in America when America still believed that children are children and children make mistakes and children still should be afforded another opportunity at life. On top of the fact that when I got in trouble, there was a section of our politicians, mainly our president and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it's the Clinton era.
They just blew the whistle and said that there's a wave of children in America that was born and have been born, and that they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, and they're heartless criminals. And these children are super predators. I'm the super predator generation that they spoke of, which we wasn't super predators. There's no such thing as a super predator. No child is born bad. Homie, we was gangsterism was promoted, propagated. It became propaganda in the black community.
Mm.
They had to put parental advisory labels on black people's music.
I remember that parental advisory, explicit content.
Come on, homie.
Black and white.
The black and white thing
Yeah.
in the corner.
Because those lyrics were starting to shape the minds of black youth in America. And so this is the product of it, what we see today. So what I tell people today is children mimic what they see and repeat what they hear. That's all I was doing.
Mhm.
Wow.
All I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful right there, y'all. That right there. I mean, there's more to this interview, and they talk about Bandman Kevo a little bit, and they talk about some other stuff. It gets a little light, but that part right there, right? I'm part of the super predator generation. I grew up. You want to talk about the Lost Boys? We were definitely the Lost Boys. We're the Lost generation. Some of us have made it. Brother Charleston had a long road to get there, but he eventually made it. I made it. A lot of us didn't. A lot of us didn't. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about those who just lost their lives to the streets or whatever, but it's so many ways to die. There's so many ways to die, man. You could be here in a physical form and just not be here. There's zombies. We've seen zombies for real. There's people I grew up with that don't even know me right now, man, because they just so messed up. They don't even know me, bro. I'm talking about people we came up in and got, you know what I'm saying? Put in work together, all that, man. They just don't know me. I've lost so many friends to self-deletion. You know what I mean? Just, you know, they're like, oh, it was an accident. I know it wasn't. I know they did it on purpose. You know what I mean? Life is hard, man. But we were prepared for it. We were told life was hard. We were told everybody doesn't get a trophy. We were told that you got to put in work, either in the streets or on the real world. Like as a good citizen, you still got to put in work, hard work. You know what I mean? So when I watch this, like this Charleston White, man, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I got nothing but respect for this man. Nothing but respect for him. I'm so happy he was able to go onto this platform and really tell it the way he wanted to tell it. That brother been through a lot. And again, I don't agree with everything he says, but I still respect that man. I still respect that man. So I respect him a lot now. You know what I mean? A lot now. So it was, yeah, that's life, y'all. And that's all I wanted to break down. I wanted to do this breakdown, man. I'm so glad y'all rock with me. I'm just so glad y'all rock with me, man. I'm showing up to the last chats. You know what I mean? Sister Candace, yeah, in every crisis, there is a message. There is a silver lining to every dark cloud. I truly believe that. Violence not only affects those taken from us, but those that remain. It affects those that remain the most. You know what I mean? When you're gone, you're gone. Like when it's over for that person. There is no more suffering. There's no more crying. I mean, they're gone. For those of us who remain, we got to deal with that and everything else and continue to push forward. You know what I mean? And deal with those inner demons and try to do what we can. And that's all we can do is try, y'all. That's all we can do is try. So, yeah, shout out to y'all. Thanks for rocking out with me, man. This was, again, these are the shows I love to do. You know, these are the shows that I love to do. We probably won't get the views and all that, and I don't care. You know what I mean? Because I honestly believe that there are words within this 2 hours and 23 minutes or so that people need to hear that can help some people. I really believe that, and that's why we're doing it. We're going to have some more shows coming up. We're going to have some fun. Trust me. I'm going to do some more shorts. YouTube wants shorts. So I'm about to give them some shorts. So we're going to have some fun and all that. But we're going to always double back to the real stuff. And that story I told y'all was 100% facts. All this time, all these years, I thought my cousin knew who that guy was. And I kept, I was like, hey, man, I just wanted to ask you, man, who was that dude? He's like, I don't know who that guy was. I don't know that man. So that blew my mind. I didn't know all these years later. We were 18 years old when that happened. 50 years old when I asked him about it. 51 years old when I asked him about it. All them years, I thought he knew that guy. I thought I was just somebody he grew up with. So thanks for rocking with me, y'all, man. I'm DL Saint. This is DL Saint. I Really Want to Know podcast, man. I'm going to talk to y'all later. Peace.
Darn, that's the end.